Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Street Army sends its regards.
О, бля! Игорь!
Hey everyone, it's the Enforcer. Make sure to join us on February 24th because we'll be celebrating the year anniversary of the war in Ukraine with Dennis Davidov, Operator Starsky, and Ukraine Matters, all on a podcast with us at the same time. It's going to be huge. We're going to be running a fundraiser for Doctors Without Borders, so make sure to show up, make sure to support that fundraiser, and also make sure to check out what everyone's got to say because it's going to be a wild night. And so, without further ado, I'm going to let y'all get on over to the show. Have fun, and I'll see y'all on air. Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 363 of the news, and it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 48 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, and today's been getting incredibly good. In fact, the news has gotten better as the days have gone by, because today, the Russian government has come out and said about the lack of ammunition that we've been hearing about on their side for several weeks, that any information regarding the lack of ammunition in the Russian armed forces is nothing more than misinformation and fear-mongering propaganda, and to not listen to a single bit of it. And the funniest thing is that our boy Prighozin, or as we call him on this channel, Mr. Nutsack, came out today and he started complaining and saying that that is not true, and the Wagner unit is entirely out of ammo. The remnants of it that are still in Bakhmut have no ammunition whatsoever. So let me get y'all into that video real quick, and let me let y'all hear it straight from the Nutsack's mouth, Prighozin. So, of course, I'm gonna turn down the audio a little bit and let y'all listen to him on this phone call. Well, it's not really a phone call, it's more like a Telegram post, but without further ado, here it is. I was told that the Ministry of Defense is spreading the information that they allegedly distribute ammunition to volunteer units in the Bakhmut direction. I'd like to emphasize again, if we move to a public correspondence with the Ministry of Defense, that Wagner PMC is not receiving 80% of the ammo required to complete combat objectives. Therefore, the announcement by the Ministry of Defense is nothing more than spit towards the Wagner PMC. And an attempt to hide their crimes against the fighters who are today completing a feat in Bakhmut. We'll get to that in a minute, that's a lie. When it comes to other volunteer units, they don't exist in Bakhmut, only Wagner PMC. Sounds like he's about to plug merch. There is no ammunition. The sapper shovels, for your knowledge, gentlemen leaders of the RF Ministry of Defense, are still not provided. If you're going to provide ammo, do it. And don't talk about it on the media to the Russian people, deceiving them at the same time. Unlike the Ministry of Defense and its announcements, I'm ready to provide all documents including all requests and received numbers to the military prosecution or counterintelligence, your choice, immediately upon their request. That's the end of our little clip that we got off of Telegram today, but you've got to say, it's really funny when the Russian propaganda is getting so overbearing that Mr. Nutsack, who is like the second guy up there to Putin in terms of making sure that the spin comes out the right way, is now having to go out there and publicly challenge the spin and the propaganda that they're putting out and say, this isn't the case. We're completely out of ammo. The Wagner is getting nothing. They haven't even gotten simple entrenching shovels, from what he said. That is even beyond the Russian military and their logistical abilities right now. And so he's like, they're flat out lying, and the situation is incredibly grave. And from what we can tell, he's not wrong at all. The situation is incredibly grave in the Bakhmut area. But before we get to that, we have to talk about the situation that was happening outside of the Battle of Bakhmut today, which led to a little bit more of a stir. I did not include a clip or any pictures to show this, but I'm sure many of y'all heard this on the news while our channel did not run yesterday, which is fairly normal. Just in case you're new, we never run streams on Mondays, but we run streams 6 days a week beyond that. The President of the United States visited the Ukrainians just yesterday and was able to meet with President Zelensky in Kyiv, and also made a speech today inside of Poland about how democracy in the Western world has never been stronger. At the exact same time, Putin went up in front of a massive crowd of government officials in Moscow and gave something of a State of the Union, I guess you could say, as far as the Russian Federation goes, about how things are running inside of Russia. And as he sat there and talked and gave his speech, a woman was noticed in the crowd wondering if she would be thrown out of a window very soon, and making sure that prophecy would be self-fulfilling in a way, as she said "pizdis," which means BS in Russian. So, and you can actually lip read it when the camera pans to her. You can see her clearly say "pizdis." So here's the clip. You see Putin giving the speech. You see the lady right there. She says something and then goes "pizdis." When you see them rewind it again, watch. She said BS clearly on camera. Very nice. Very nice indeed. You can see that even the Russian government officials are really believing this whole entire concoction of lies that keeps on coming out of Putin's government. But on top of that, not only this, when you go back a little bit earlier in the clip, look at this guy whose soul has been completely sucked out of his body, and he has nothing left in there. It's nothing more than one of those, like, dolls in the movie Annabelle that just stare at you from a shelf with this weird look. And also the guy behind him. Nobody in this crowd that we could see on film has any kind of expression on their face. These people are blank slates. They're not doing anything. They're not saying anything. And also, unfortunately, I hate to hear that she went to a window store the other day and fell out of a window in the display lobby. But incredibly unfortunate to see, incredibly unfortunate to hear. And also, I know why these people look like blank slates, because they're having to listen to the biggest BSer in the world right now. And I think they would rather be anywhere, even in the gulag, than compared to listening to him. So we're now going to be moving on from Russia and all of the news surrounding everything going on there, because now it's time for us to go deep into Russia again, because in the area of Novosibirsk, we got a small look. It's an incredibly small glimpse at the amount of Russian dead and casualties that are coming home in boxes. Of course, many Russian dead never return back to Russia and usually end up rotting and dissipating on the fields of Ukraine, never to be found again, and making it somewhat difficult to see what the true Russian death count is in terms of graves and also coffins, because very little of their dead are actually collected. But in Novosibirsk today, we got a clip from inside of a warehouse showing a massive allotment of coffins, apparently filled with Russian soldiers' remains that have been found, being returned to the town, most likely for burial. And you see all of them right here, most of them with paper slips on them saying what bodies inside where. And you see that there's so many of them, they brought in a Kamaz, pretty much 18-wheeler, to unload more of them. You see right there, it's a certificate of death, pretty much showing who's the Russian soldier and what their name was and their date of death. So, quite interesting. Also, we can see right here, and let me see if I can read this a little bit better. This guy died on the 8th of some month. I can't read the text too well, but it was this year. So it was either the 8th of January or... it looks like it may be February, so he may have just died a little while ago and already been returned back to Russia. So this kind of gives you an idea that if this guy is at, I guess you could say, this allotment, a lot of these guys and a lot of these coffins were just brought in due to fresh deaths that just occurred over the past week or so, if it's in February, and giving you an even better idea of how bad the casualties really are. Also, Matthew, I'm hearing static every once in a while from your end. It's been going on ever since the start. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from Novosibirsk and further on into the Western world again, because there's been a lot of news coming out of Germany as well as Britain about what they've been doing to support Ukraine and making sure to help them out. And so starting off in London, well, not in London, in the United Kingdom in general, of course, many of y'all know that the British have taken on a massive undertaking and a massive task to make sure to take care and fix up Ukrainian soldiers as best as possible, send them back to the front, and then let them blow the Russians away till the end of all time. And we saw today that King Charles III actually visited the front line and congratulated some of the soldiers of Ukraine for their fighting spirit, and also undertaking such a massive task as to go to a foreign nation, receive training there, and then return. And so here's the video, and I thought this was pretty neat. And that's the end of the clip. Of course, we didn't get a lot of footage, and I just wanted to show y'all that it did occur, but incredibly interesting to see, and it's very interesting to know that even at the highest levels of the British government, going all the way up to the Crown itself, the government is completely involved and invested in training these Ukrainian soldiers and returning them back to their home country to make sure that they can fight as best as possible. We're now going to be moving on outside of the United Kingdom and on into the area of Hamburg, and specifically Bremerhaven, where a lot of U.S. support and U.S. ships dock with American support to unload and then make it further on inland. Also, Matthew, I know you said you can't fix it, but I'm hearing like you're typing, you're breathing, and everything over there, and it's coming through like
I have to end up
normally.
restarting my computer for it because it looks like it's a issue with my settings.
Yeah, man, like I wouldn't say much about it, but the static is like loud on my end, and it's constant. But anyways, moving on down into the port of Bremerhaven, we actually know the specific docks and yards that American ships moor at to unload the vehicles, and they are these little docks over here. Now, the reason why I'm pointing them out, because this is pretty much public knowledge, and you can see it on satellite, so if we can see it, the Russians can clearly see it, so it's not really that much of an OPSEC concern. One thing that is kind of wild, though, is that people in the area of Bremerhaven have been taking pictures of the Bradleys moving out of the port and further on into Germany. For example, today we saw one picture of a German truck carrying off a Bradley from the docks and further on into Germany, which is fairly interesting. Also, Matthew, that's perfectly fine. I think the call will still be open when you do that. And it's fairly interesting because it's kind of a little bit of an OPSEC issue. If we really think about it, if people are taking pictures like this and showing everything going on militarily, who's to say that if a conflict didn't heat up with the Russians and the West got directly involved, this wouldn't be happening all over the place? And it seems to be a little concerning in one regard, not that concerning in the other, considering the Russians really can't do much about these pictures and showing exactly where these vehicles are. Then get a good idea of where the Bradleys' whereabouts are at this moment. There's not really like they can do anything about it, but it is incredibly good to see that the Bradleys are on their way, and they're now finally leaving the port of Bremerhaven. Even further on down in Germany, we saw some more interesting news as the Ukrainian soldiers that have been brought into Germany are already training on the German equivalent of the well, I wouldn't say it's the German equivalent of the Bradley, but it's somewhat similar. In the town of Munster, which sounds pretty cool, and for some reason I remember a mustard brand being named after the town of Munster, there are some Ukrainian soldiers there that are training on the Martyr APC. The Martyr APC is a fairly interesting vehicle, one of Germany's backbone armored personnel carriers throughout most of its military's history, at least in the modern world. And we can see some Ukrainian soldiers here with the Ukrainian patches visible, standing in front of a German Martyr and training on it. The caption calls it a BMP Martyr. It's not called a BMP. I don't know why the caption says that. Its actual name is just the Martyr 1A3, I believe, is the more modern version that the Germans use today. And we can see a picture of a Martyr 1 in 2012 right here being used by the Bundeswehr. These are incredibly interesting because they come with a 20mm autocannon and also are usually, if not always, equipped with a Milan or a Milan 2 ATGM. As we've seen so far in the war in Ukraine, Milan 2s can punch through any Russian tank they come against, all the way up to the most modern iterations of the vehicles, such as the T-72B3s and the T-80 BVMs. So a Martyr 1A3, at least as long as it sees the enemy first, can destroy even Russia's best tanks on the field with the Milan 2. The 20mm, as far as we know, doesn't really have the penetrative abilities to punch through much armor rather than an armored personnel carrier, which is comparable to a Martyr, so it's more so for infantry support. But nonetheless, these vehicles are quite nice, and it's wonderful to see that the Germans are getting some of these, as many of them as they can, into Ukraine, and hopefully we'll see these on the battlefield soon, and the Ukrainians blowing the Russians away with each one of these. We're now going to be moving on out of Germany and from that neat little picture and back into Ukraine, because a lot has been going on in Ukraine, and specifically in the background, far west in the country, in an unknown location, but west nonetheless, which kind of rhymes. We can see that the Azov are training brand new soldiers to join their unit as the war goes on. Of course, recruitment and service is a never-ending challenge for both countries. The Russians have somewhat of a more pressing issue due to the very high casualty rates that they endure, and also the very short lengths of contracts that they also face, which is a massive challenge with Russia's conscript army. And usually you can call up former conscripts back out of the reserve, but that is highly frowned upon by the Russian public and something that the Russians are trying to avoid. Meanwhile, the Ukrainians have a I'm just like, one second, I'm going to wait for that, Matthew. I can hear the reverb there, but I can't hear it now. And it seems as though all the sounds have disappeared, so I think you've rejoined the call. Testing, testing, hello? So we're going to keep rolling, but we can see here that they're also using what appears to be the the Canadian version of the M16 or the M4, if I remember correctly. Let me pull this up. Canadian service rifle. And let me make sure. It is the Colt Canada C7. It's actually the exact one. It is a Colt Canada C7. You can see an exact picture of it right there. The only difference it appears to be is that the stock is solid, and on this one, it's one of those interesting modern stocks. You can actually see a picture of it right there without the scope, but it does appear that these are Canadian provided C7 assault rifles, and very neat to see because we don't see a lot of Canadian small arms on the field, at least from what we've seen over the course of the war. And it looks like all of the brand new recruits are all training with this exact same rifle. All of them also have quite a nice helmet. I believe, if I remember correctly, this class of helmet can actually stand up against rifle rounds and has very little backplate deformation, even catching AK-47 bullets head on. Not, of course, at point blank range. Nothing can really protect against that. But I believe at a range of about 300 yards, they can protect against a head-on AK-47 round, hitting it right on the face of it. And no backplate deformation occurs that is incredibly large. So mild concussion is the worst thing that a soldier could receive from a headshot on that helmet. Moving on to the next picture, we once again see an instructor moving around, making sure that the recruits are getting a good idea of how to operate the Colt C7. In the next picture, we can see one of them firing the Colt, and I've got to say, that is quite a nice looking rifle, and that scope is kind of funny looking to me, because it looks a little bit like a can, like a very small, like, film canister that you would get for an old camera. Also, Matthew, just checking, are you back? I don't think he's back yet because I can't hear him. So he's still doing his thing. And so we're moving on into our last picture where we can see once again the recruits standing, it appears, in a formation. We don't know what kind of position that is. Like, I don't know if that's supposed to be their equivalent of rest or anything like that, but we can see them all standing side by side, and it looks like all of them actually have the uniform equipment. This is incredibly rare, even on the Ukrainian side, to see an entire unit equipped with the exact same clothes, with the exact same dyes, the exact same packs, helmets, and everything else. So quite interesting to see, and it may be showing that the Azov has such a surplus of supplies that they're able to create a fairly uniform force, down to even the minor details such as how the plate carriers look and things like that. So with that, we're now going to be moving on out of the western part of Ukraine and on into our location unknowns, because we have a pretty interesting amount out here. And of course, while we showed those clips of the Azov unit in training, we still don't really have a good idea how many Ukrainian soldiers are being recruited every single month and how much their force grows, also compared to the amount of casualties they're taking. So with that, we're now moving on into the location unknowns and starting off on day 362. And some of y'all that have been very keen-eyed may actually notice that our numbering system was changed a little bit. It's actually been pushed back because today was supposed to actually be day 364 according to our count, but we changed it to day 363 thanks to a Discord Q&A. Also, the link to our Discord is in the description below. You can go join it. It was brought up to me last night by Miss Disa, who is a channel legend at this point and has helped this channel to keep on running a whole load, and I think you're in here tonight, so welcome back, and also thank you for pointing this out. The numbering's off, and so we made sure to make it correct that day 365 will fall on the 23rd of February, which is, at least in Western time, the first day of the war. But while it was the 23rd over here when the war started, in Ukraine it was already the 24th, which is why the year anniversary is falling on the 24th of February, because for most viewers here in the West, it will actually be the 24th. So with that, we're now moving on into our location unknowns, where we started off with some Russian mine clearing strategies, and I have to say, these were incredibly genius. I've never seen anyone clear mines like this before. Also, we're going to have to mute it, but we can see the tank driving through. Something popped on top of it, smoke's coming off. We're not sure. Oh, and the tank's gone already. We didn't get to see it run over the mine, but we did see it blow up on the mine. It's now come to a complete stop. Let's see, when you see another one driving by, and that one's gone too. The pieces are flying all over. And so with that, that's the end of the clip. But once again, very nice to see that the Russians are clearing the mines as best they can. If they didn't clear mines like this, who would get them out of Ukraine? It's incredibly dangerous to have mines laying around, and it's good to know that the Russians have the best intent in heart and are just making sure to clear out those mines. Also, I see a lot of y'all saying it's old, and I think, as far as I remember, it is old. So I think we may have just gotten that one as a copy again. But with that, we're moving on to our next clip, which is certainly not old, where we saw a little cat. And this thing was really cute. So here's the clip. When you see the soldier looking over into his jacket, and there's a little kitten in there. Ah, man. Love to see it. Love to see it. When you see it actually going back into the pocket, it's like, hey, get me out of here, man. I don't want to see light. But really cute little kitten. Love the cats. And it's good to know that the Ukrainians are making sure to take care of these little kittens and adopt them wherever they find them, wherever they've been abandoned near the front. We're now going to be moving on, and y'all wouldn't believe it, into the next day. Not day 362, but day 363, because the information and the news here is once again fairly interesting. Starting over with our first clip where we saw a brand new Stugna system in use. And so, let me show you this real quick. You can actually see the Stugna streaking in. It appears from the top center of the film, across the field and onto the road. We can already see that some Russian soldiers are running away from the vehicle. When you see the vehicle get hit, it's on fire. We can see a crewman stumbling around, and we can actually see one fly. So it appears that this brand new Stugna system hit this vehicle twice and also knocked it out quite effectively, with most of the infantry routing off the field and leaving the area. So with that, we're now going to be moving on into our next clip. And while we do that, I'm going to check on Matthew real quick and see.
Hello.
Oh, hey, he's back. Hey!
Yes.
Yeah!
The issue hasn't gone away, sadly, but I am here.
He's back. So with that, we're now moving on into our next bit of Location Unknown news, where we can see some Russian soldiers attempting to shoot down a drone. And I've got to tell y'all, this didn't go that well. I'm going to let y'all know up front. They didn't succeed. So, here's the clip. And also, of course, we have to mute it. But when you see the Russians looking around, it's kind of like a slideshow. When you see one Russian soldier laying in the trench, they're firing at the drone above them. That's dropping a bomblet, probably, at this point. See him trying to fire at it, and the bomblet hits. And the Russians go down like bowling pins. Fairly interesting to see, and of course, I have to say, it's good to know that the Ukrainians are able to drop a bomblet dead on and get a couple of them, even while under fire. I guess you could say that's pressure under fire, Matthew. Pressure under fire. We're now going to be moving on into the next clip of Location Unknown News, and this one was incredibly cool. We've never seen anything like this before. I'm going to introduce to y'all a Ukrainian UH-60 Blackhawk with Ukrainian colors on it. Incredibly cool. Really neat, actually, and it looks like this one actually has some kind of a civilian livery on it. So it may actually be I believe it's called the S-73, which is the civilian version of the helicopter. Let me just pull up UH-60 right here. UH-60 Blackhawk, and it is based off of, let's see, there's a civilian version of this helicopter, and I'm trying to find that real quick. Let's see here. Let's scroll down. United States, other and potential users. So let's scroll down even further. Let me just type this in. Civilian UH-60. What is that called? A Sikorsky S-70. It looks like it may be a Sikorsky S-70 due to the overall civilian livery that's on it. Because you can tell right here, it's kind of got a livery something like that, not exactly like that. You can see like this blue streak on the bottom and this white stripe, which shows that the Ukrainians may have gotten this from a very kind donor that handed over one of these things, but incredibly neat nonetheless, and really cool to see that both of these helicopter pilots are flying, in my opinion, probably one of the best looking transport helicopters there is out there. Nobody can say that the Blackhawk helicopter series, or the S-70, does not look good. I mean, like, does that not look like a cool helicopter or what?
I mean, it looks cool to me as long as the thing actually stays in the air.
Well, I mean, they have some problems every once in a while, but still incredibly cool looking. You can't lie about that. The thing is neat.
It's very cool looking, actually.
Yeah, and it's sad to know they're finally going to be retiring these things here in the future and replacing them with that thing. It's that tilt rotor thing. I forgot the name of it exactly, but I'm not really a big fan of that thing, and there was a better competitor there that I think looked better and probably was a little bit more sound in its design philosophy. Because if we learned anything over the past decade, it's that the Osprey isn't that safe of an aircraft, and any tilt rotors may have some very inherent dangerous issues and shortcomings in them while they're trying to sort out the issues. But anyways, moving on into our next bit of location unknown news, we can also see some artillery shells are making their way to Ukraine. A brand new package has been announced by the US government of $460 million, which includes, and unfortunately we don't have the exact numbers here, but additional ammunition for the HIMARS, additional 155mm artillery rounds, another additional amount of 120mm mortar rounds. So we can see that there's a lot of heavy ammunition being provided here for the artillery, which we've been hearing a decent bit about, and people have been getting quite concerned that the Ukrainians may be running out of ammunition, and it appears that this package is trying to fix that gap or that issue in the Ukrainian logistics. We also seen that another 4 aerial surveillance radars are being sent over, along with additional Javelin anti-armor systems and 2,000 more Javelin missiles. We also saw 4 Bradley Infantry Fire Support Team vehicles are being sent in, along with 2 tactical vehicles to recover equipment. Some Claymores are also being provided, along with demolition munitions, night vision devices, tactical secure communication systems, or in other words, a walkie-talkie or something like that, and then medical supplies, also spare parts and other field equipment. So this appears to be that building block package that we were talking about the last time we were actually on stream. Excuse me. Last time we were on stream, we had a poll thrown up talking about what should we be sending to Ukraine, and it's this artillery shortage an issue. And I went and said my point that we need to focus always on sending the basic building blocks of support and making sure that an army can run at its basic level, and then also focus on the abstract as well after we secured those needs. And it looks like this package, while small in monetary figures, is probably quite large in its artillery figures. If we go through the numbers, $460 million, how much does a 155mm HE shell cost? Let's try and get an answer for that. One 155mm shell is around 3.3 thousand euros. So let's say, let's convert that number, 460 million USD to euros, and let's see what we get. So it would be something like 4.3 million euros. So now that we have that, let's go to the online calculator and let's throw that all in. Holy moly, Duncan!
Yeah, thank you, Duncan.
Thank you, Duncan. Thank you. So let's see here. 4.3 million. So we want to make sure. Okay, so that is 4.3 million. Divided by, and of course we're doing this as a crude estimate. It's of course not accounting for everything else involved, but let's just say that entire $460 million is going towards 155mm artillery rounds, and with them costing, according to Wayno, $3,500 a pop. And let's just say they're not Excaliburs, they're just normal high explosive shells. So divided by $3,500, that means that they're getting another 1,228 artillery shells, which when you're... Wait a minute, hang on. I did the number wrong. That's 4.3 million. That's 4.3 million. That's not 430 million. So one second, let me put that in. So that is 430 million divided by 3,500. I was about to be like, that is incredibly small. They're actually getting 12,000. Well, whoa, wait a minute. 122,857 artillery shells if all $460 million went into 155mm shells alone. And also, everyone's flaming me for the math. I'm sorry, y'all. Math has never been my strong point. But still, that is an incredibly large amount of shells. That means that if an artillery battery, and let's think about this, there are 500 miles of front line. So there's 500 miles, and you take all of those shells and you divide it amongst 500 miles. So that means out of this package, you will have 245 artillery shells that you can fire per every single mile of the front line in Ukraine. So that's actually incredibly good. And also that means that if they shoot about 10 of these per day, they'll be supported for about, let's see here, 245. 245 divided by 10. About a month in every single part of the front line if they fired off 10 rounds a day per mile every single day without changing that. So it looks like this is actually quite a substantive amount of support, although we don't know how that's actually broken down and how many artillery shells are actually involved in that amount of support. But still, incredibly good to see, and it's great to know that they will be able to keep chugging the rounds downrange like freight trains thanks to the support. And so with that, we're now moving on into... Uh-oh, my headset just died. Why in the world did it do that? 1 second.
Dang, tonight's one of those nights where, like, literally everything is going wrong.
Everything's
but
going
somehow
wrong.
we're still going. Like,
Yeah.
my polls aren't showing up. I can't hardly see the chat. My headphones are all screwed up. My phone's not taking pictures. Literally everything's wrong.
Yeah. And so with that, we're now moving on into the loss report. And I see people saying that would be an F. Oh, come on, Carl. It wasn't that bad. But anyways, we're moving on into the Russian losses for February 21st. And while I can add, I can count, and 760 Russian soldiers killed in 24 hours is once again on up there. And this is considered the norm. This is not considered low. This isn't considered high. This is considered the norm as of right now. And that is quite high. That's an entire battalion tactical group that's been killed in 24 hours, along with 9 armored personnel carriers and 10 tanks. Also, a single supply truck was swatted somewhere like a fly. We also saw 4 artillery systems get destroyed. 5 drones were destroyed, and 1 Bobcat skid steer aided. So incredible.
1 Bobcat. One fake Bobcat.
And it's great to see that the losses are quite high for the infantry, at least for the army. But we're not seeing any losses once again in planes, helicopters, or ships for that matter. We haven't seen many losses for the ships or even the boats ever since the beginning of the war around May and June. And of course, it's not really expected. Who in the hell expects the Ukrainians to destroy the Black Sea Fleet on a daily basis when they don't even really have a navy? So really, 18 ships is more like a blessing than anything. It's crazy to think they even destroyed 18 of them. And also, the infantry numbers are once again incredibly high, and it looks like the Wagner unit may be running into some problems with ammunition right there, and that may be why the losses are climbing. And also, that may be the reason why the Bakhmut line looks the way it is, because it is certainly not improving. It's getting worse as we speak, for the Russians in particular. We're now going to be moving on out of the location unknowns, out of the international news, out on into the front lines, all the way from the farthest north we saw today, which was north of Satove, and all the way south to the area of Vasilivka. We've had a little bit of news from everywhere, but before we get into any of that news, Matthew has thrown up some polls, and these polls have been juice, I must say. So with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right. So for our first question segment, we have 3 polls to address. And tonight, I have to admit, I've been limping along, barely putting up any really good polls with options, but we do have some. So the very first one says, do you believe the U.S. president's trip to Kyiv will escalate or de-escalate the war in Ukraine? 43%, which is the popular choice, said it will not escalate, no concern. 38% said it will, but it's necessary. 9% said it'll escalate in a bad way, and 9% said unsure. So on this one, I've got to go with the it will escalate, but it's necessary option. It's important that the U.S. get behind Ukraine 100%. And I think by showing up and actually walking through the Capitol, you can't get better than that. And it sent a very clear message to Putin, but sadly that will escalate it because Putin's not going to take kindly to that, as we saw today. But Enforcer, what say you?
I don't really think it's going to escalate that the war all too much, in my opinion, because much like many other world leaders that have come and went, we've already made this statement by having Zelensky in Congress, and I think if anything, that showed, I guess you could say, the exact same thing, just in the reverse, where Zelensky was here in America instead of the president of the United States being in Kyiv. So I would say it's not really going to escalate the war, because when Zelensky came to America, we didn't really see the Russians do anything. There was hardly even a response from them, rather than the whole whine and cry show. So I think that the president of the United States being there and being present really shows nothing more than support for Ukraine, and probably will not escalate this war any further than it has currently been. So with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And the second poll says the USA claims that Russia carried out a nuclear missile test that apparently failed while Biden was in Ukraine. And what are your thoughts? 64% said that figures. Russia is a paper bear. 19% said unsure, and 17% said I'm still concerned about it. Now, I have to say that if that is true, that definitely fits the whole MO of the Russian government and the military at this point. Everything's a failure, kind of like my computer tonight. But I got to say that if that is true, that's really something else. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say it's it's hilarious, really, when you think about it, that they're trying to conduct a nuclear test and then it fails. And I guess it was trying to send a message or something, and then it just straight up failed. I think that's hilarious, and I think that really shows what the Russians are capable of, and really throws in the question what the rest of their nuclear arsenal is capable of, considering that a test was a failure. Usually tests are done, like with the North Koreans, to show that you have working nuclear weapons, and the idea of your nuclear weapons failing during a test is not a good sign at all, and may be showing some very bad shortcomings and failings within their nuclear arsenal and their nuclear batteries. So with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well, because I think that's honestly one of the funniest things I've ever heard. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And the third and final one of the first question segment says, is China signaling that it is sympathetic to Russia by scheduling Xi Jinping's visit to Russia? It looks like 79% said yes, it is intended to send a message, 13% said unsure, and 8% said the timing is a coincidence. And I personally think this is a coincidence. I think that it's the follow-up to Biden's trip to Ukraine. Xi is going to show up and go to Russia to meet with Putin. And I think that is for a specific reason, to send a message to the West. But Enforcer, what say you?
I really don't know what to say about it, because there is a historical precedent for Xi visiting Russia. He's been nearly an annual attendee of the May 9th Victory Parade ever since 2015. So he does have a bit of a history, about 7 years, well, really 8 years worth of history of showing up to the Victory Parades and also other events that the Russians request him to be there. So it's not really that out of the norm as far as Russian and Chinese diplomacy goes, but it is fairly interesting here that they're scheduling a visit this soon and not really related to the May 9th Victory Parade. That may be showing that it is in fact intended to send some kind of message and show that the Chinese may potentially become a backer of the Russians in this war. So I'm honestly going to have to lean this time into a no answer and go unsure and undecided, because there is a historical precedent for this to be largely normal, but at the same time it does seem the timing may be showing that there's a message intended to be sent here. So with that, I hope that does address the poll fairly well. And do we have another? Because that looks like the most recent one, the latest and greatest poll that we've had up.
And yes, that is our last one for this segment. And I saw Trister once say in the comments, I don't think Xi has been out of China in 3 years. Is that true?
Is that true? Because I swear
I want to know.
Xi Jinping travel. Let's type that in. International trips made by Xi, the Xi. So in 2013, he showed up to Moscow. Let's see, discuss bilateral ties. Discussions of a new comprehensive strategic cooperation plan between China and Russia were held. Increased tourism cooperation and cultural ties were agreed upon. So actually, this goes back as far as 2013. So moving on up through the years, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 18, 19. In 2020, he only made one visit, and that was to Myanmar. 2021, he made no visits. And then in 2022, he's actually made quite a load of visits, actually, in 2022 to a lot of the Stand Series countries. Once again, is showing the entire Silk Road policy that they're trying to enact in Central Asia, with Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan being two of the countries, Saudi Arabia. Interestingly enough, he visited on the 7th of December, and he also visited Thailand and Indonesia to the southeast of Asia. And I guess you could kind of say, once again, Matthew, this is fairly interesting. All of his visits in 2022 are all countries that surround the Indian Ocean. Do you notice that again? It's the exact same thing I was talking about a while ago, because here's Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, Silk Road, trade route going to Turkey. Then the other three countries were Indonesia, down here, Thailand up here, and then Saudi Arabia over here on the two very ends of the Indian Ocean. And it looks like once again all of those foreign visits last year were intended either to help strengthen China's economic and diplomatic ties in Central Asia through the Silk Road project, or to try and start building up that military presence in the Indian Ocean and start laying the groundwork for that. So really interesting to see.
And I see a couple of folks saying that it was because of that, that little bug that was going around that he probably didn't leave for a little while. Can't say the name because YouTube will come down hard on us, but that could be it too.
YouTube will eat our liver if we say anything about it. So unfortunately, we can't say a word about it. We can't see this 3-year missing timetable though, because he did visit a country in 2020, and he has visited countries last year as well, 5 of them. So it appears that this is fairly normal for him to visit foreign countries. And also, notice on the list, except for 2022, and that's fairly interesting, Matthew, notice the war in Ukraine happened in 2022, and he did not make a visit to Russia, but in 2019, he made a visit to Russia. In 2018, he once again made a visit to Russia. In 2017, he once again made another visit to Russia. And in 2016, he did not make a visit to Russia, but in 2015 he did. So it's been almost a yearly occurrence that he has visited Russia, but once the war in Ukraine started, that annual Russian visit that's almost always happened since 2015, except for once, didn't happen.
And also, there's a political correlation as well, but sadly I won't get into it because we avoid politics, but there's also a little bit of a separate one as well.
Well, we can't touch on anything political, but still, a very interesting note to see, and I don't know, I'm still going to remain undecided because it may be a coincidence, it may be that he's trying to restart this annual visit. This one was on the 5th to 8th of June, this one was on the 11th to 13th of September, this one here was on the 3rd of July, that was actually a day before, whatchamacallit, the 4th of July, why in the hell did I have a hard time thinking of that one? And then let's see what else, this one, actually 2016 is the year he skipped. This one he went to Russia both on Victory Day, and he also went on the 8th to the 11th of July. So it appears that his visits, except for in 2014, he did show up in the middle of early February for the Sochi Winter Olympics, but it appears that he doesn't really show up that early in the year. Usually it's mid to late summer that he makes his annual visit to Russia, so this may be showing something interesting. So I don't know, it may be intended to send a message. I'm kind of leaning more so towards that now that we were looking at his vacation stats and strat cards. So that I hope we answered that poll fairly well and did a little bit of a deep dive into where Xi's been. Also, that's his signature?
What in the world?
Quick, write it down, Matthew, write it down.
Let's see. It says Bing Chiling. Bing Chiling.
Bing Chiling. But anyways, that's weird. And also, here's the seal of the People's Republic of China, and then also I believe this is the Communist Party. Yeah, the Communist Party of China. Kind of weird how I don't like their sickle and hammer because it's got that weird ball on it. Like that thing just looks weird. Like it's not like an actual handle.
Trailer hitch for your Chevy.
I'm gonna put my trailer hitch on with my sickle and hammer. But anyways, I hope we addressed that fairly well. And also, oh look, world map highlighted countries visited by Xi Jinping during his leadership as of February 23rd. He has made 4 visits to the United States. I don't remember a single one of them.
Me neither. When did he do that?
When the hell did he do that? He's almost made as many trips to America as he has Russia. He's only made 1 extra trip to Russia as compared to the United States. When the hell did these happen? Let's go through the list. Okay, this one happened in 2013. There wasn't one that happened in 2014. There was one that happened in 2015. There was also another one that happened in 2016, another one that happened in 2017, another one that happened... Actually, he hasn't been coming around past few years. But what the hell? That is so weird. I didn't know he had shown up to the United States 4 entire times. Like, I never even heard about this stuff. Look, he's here. That's the White House.
Oh.
Wait, no, I'm sorry. That's Buenos Aires. I was about to say, that does not look like the White House.
Yeah, I was about to say that doesn't look like the White House.
What the hell? Wait a minute. Wait a minute, and then, well, what? He was in Hamburg? Okay, anyways, I can't get into it too much because we'll be here all night. But with that, I hope we addressed that poll fairly well, and I think it's now time for us to move on into them questions. And so with that, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, and first up from our super chats, we have a $115 donation from Susan L, who says, buy lots of pizza and enjoy. And Susan, I'll have you know that tonight we actually had pizza, so thank you very much.
And thank you so much for the support, Susan. Now, we did, in fact, have pizza. It was Bakhmut, and it was delicious. I love Bakhmut. And of course, I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Y'all may have not ever seen that get thrown in the live chat, and the reason being is because that was sent over PayPal, one of the few that has ever been sent. But of course, I want to thank you so much once again, Susan L, for that incredibly kind support, because you're helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, I hope that does address that comment fairly well, and we are going to make sure to have a overload from the pizza. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
All right, and up next, we have a $70 super chat from Duncan VR. And of course, he comes in hard with the animal noises. He says, Bamuba, jaga jaga. Putler has lost his mind, saying that Russia did not start the war. He's talking a whole lot of baba. They should throw Putin out of a window, baba. It's time to chop off, it's time to chop off Putin's rough babu. Oh my god. For the Igor Fund.
Baba, beep, meow, grab a pizza. Pizza. Well, that's 2 pizza funds we've gotten tonight. And I'm going to thank you so much for the support, Duncan. And also helping this channel to keep on running. And also, chop off Putin's what? Ruff.
It's up to interpretation.
Man. But I got to thank you so much once again for the support, Duncan, and helping this channel to keep on running. Those messages are always a treat. They really are a treat, because we've gotten used to them, and they're hilarious whenever they come around because of the tradition of them. And so thank you so much once again for the support, helping this channel to keep on running, and throwing in another golden one. The golden one. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope we addressed that fairly well, and we will make sure to put that as well towards the pizza fund. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and Miss Colt C7 said, I just love that Enforcer Maz embraced Duncan's super chats. Yes, I learned a long time ago that Duncan's super chats are always going to have animal noises, and I always prepare for it. So when I see it, I know it's coming. But thank you again, Duncan, for the support. And up next, I see we have a super chat from Avari Mandubratis, but they told me to save it until after the Zelensky speech, so we will do that. So up next, we have a $30 donation from Jose Ruano, who says, can you locate the El Salvador del Mundo statue in San Salvador, El Salvador? That is where I was born, and it's been years since I visited my country, and take a question from the chat. Thanks, and Viva LSA, Slava Ukraine.
And thank you so much for the support. I swear that I know where El Salvador is. It's right here. Yep, it's there it is. San Salvador in the city. Well, El Salvador, city of San Salvador. And where was the statue? What was it called?
Let's see. It's called El Salvador del Mundo.
El Salvador del Mundo.
I feel like I'm saying that like I'm truly from Alabama.
El Salvador del Mundo.
Is that Del Mundo?
El Salvador del Mundo. But here it is. Wow, that's actually a really cool statue. Like, it's got a globe on it. It's got a giant cross. It's really cool. Also, they make it into a Christmas tree.
That's cool too.
Man, this stuff be cool. But still, really neat overall. And also, El Salvador, well, San Salvador actually looks fairly modern. Like, some nicely paved streets and stuff. Like, dang. Kind of nice, I'd have to say. Also really cool to know that you were born nearby to the statue. Really cool. And also, let's drop down there on the street, considering how nice... Oh, there's no street view. But let's drop down here and see what it looks like. Nice park. Nicely mowed, except for the little step things. Those aren't nicely mowed. But then again, hey, it's a public park. No one ever mows or does the public parks right. But still, not that bad of a place. Also, this is a really freaking nice building. And also, it says apply now. For what? There's like an astronaut on that building. Is this like the El Salvadorian space program? I don't know, but still, incredibly cool to see. And I thank you so much for the support and sharing that with us, because I have never really taken a good look at El Salvador, but I remember way back when I was really into Central American history, the war that happened in between Honduras and El Salvador over a football game, which was a real deal, which was kind of hilarious that that happened, but still, an interesting part of Central American history, and really cool to see the neat country and the really cool looking city of San Salvador. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on out of this question segment, but once again, thank you so much for the support and sharing with us the entire Lee Spring Army, as a matter of fact, where you're from, which is San Salvador. Also, the Santa Ana volcano. I want to see a picture of this because it looks like there's water in it. There is. Can you swim in it? I'm really interested.
Yeah, it looks good for swimming. Probably catch all kinds of stuff in that.
Let's see.
Oh.
It looks like this is actually saying don't get near it.
I'm sure there's a lot of sulfur coming off of it.
But then that says felicidades, and I think that means like congratulations. One second. Yeah, it means congratulations.
Congratulations, you're gonna die.
Congratulations! Oh, man, it's saying congratulations, you made it to the top. This is what you're going to see. Okay, I'm sorry. I got that totally wrong. This is giving off, like, the height and everything of it. But that looks really neat. I mean, like, I would like to go there and see that, because that looks like a sight to see. And it looks like these folks thought it was a sight to see, and it apparently was. And so with that, really cool. I really think this is neat. And so with that, we're now moving out of this question segment. Rod SMA said it's acid. Oh man, had rain on my parade like that, didn't but with that, Elsa Card said there's a volcano under it. No man, I didn't know that. I didn't know the volcano looking mountain, it was a volcano, man. But anyway, I'm just kidding with you, Carter. We're now moving back into Ukraine and out of this question segment. And of course, I thank everyone so much for the support in that question segment. And I hope we addressed everyone's comment fairly well. Now it's time for us to move into the Northeastern Front. And we haven't been seeing a lot happen here over the past 48 hours. Here's yesterday. Oh, come on. And here's the day before that. So here's the next day and the next day. You can see the Ukrainians, of course, made that small little amount of ground north of the Seversky Donets River, but beyond that, nothing much has happened. But we have seen a little bit of video activity that was filmed. For example, the conditions on the front line in the farthest north areas, like this right here. And oh man, Shiva me timbers. Also, we're going to have to mute that, but you can see this guy is sleeping in his blanket, and it's pretty much frozen solid. You can see his nose poking out there, and he's like, man, it's cold. And I'm not going to lie, it's so cold, his clothes are like frozen solid. But he looks warm. And so with that, that's the end of that clip. But once again, giving you a little bit of an idea of what those frontline conditions look like in some areas of the northern part of the front line. And imagine fighting in that in Kyiv, which is way far north than even the farthest northern point of this front line right now. If we zoom out and you look at the parallel, Kyiv is probably about a good 100 to 150 miles further north than the most northerly point of the front line down there. So you can imagine what fighting in that area would look like at this point of the year if the Russians had somehow still ended up being there. We're now moving down further on the front line and towards the area of Crimea, and into today's news, where we actually saw the Ukrainian, well, 2 Russian soldiers trying to outrun the Ukrainian artillery. Oh, we're hearing that peaceful flute music. And we can see
1950s synth music.
We can see the artillery shells exploding in the trees. We can see 2 Russians get up. They're like, oh, Bliet, where do we go, Bliet? Run this way. Run this way. Dog this way, Bliet. I'm in the trees, Bliet, like a Vietnamese, Bliet. Dragging a bag or a man walking through the trees. Bliet. Run through the other side, Bliet. Oh, and the artillery still caught up with him. Believe it or not, run as fast as you can, but if a drone can see you and the artillery can triangulate where you are, you're screwed. And it looks like these guys just learned that. But my comrade Bubba, you ain't got no legs, Bliet. But with that, that's the end of the clip, and fairly interesting to see the origin story of the Russian Forrest Gump. We're now moving on out of Crimea and further on down the line and into Bakhmut. And believe it or not, y'all, Bakhmut has fallen just entirely. It's completely collapsed. Take a look at this. Take a look at the last 48 hours. Here's today. Here's yesterday. Here's the day before that. This is the 18th. This is the 19th. This is the 20th. And let me refresh the map just to make sure that it hasn't gotten an update. Oh, wait a minute. It's actually the 21st. So let me go back. Here's the 20th. Here's the 19th. Oh my god. Oh my god. It's over. It's over, y'all. They've lost it. There's no way they can get it back. Matthew, we're looking at the final days of Bakhmut. The front line is not moving at all.
Oh, man.
Those Russian bots.
Who'd have known?
There was Russian bots were right. That breakthrough happened up there on that western ridge, and they've just wiped out the town in a day. Support the project on Patreon. Oh, but that just popped up out of nowhere. But anyways, as y'all can see, the Russians have hit a dead end in Bakhmut. They're not moving at all, and this is even compared to the very slow and snail speed movements that we've been seeing over a decent amount of time in this area. We're not seeing any of that now. They've just completely stopped dead in their tracks. And this, of course, happened after the Sanitary Day was declared. We've never seen Russian momentum pick back up after that Sanitary Day, which may show that these tiny little movements on the front line are only dying actions of a dying battle, and the third battle of Bakhmut may be opening up soon, and the second battle of Bakhmut ended. We'll, of course, have to wait a little bit longer to make sure that we are entirely sure that the second battle of Bakhmut has ended, because this may just be a small 1 to 2 days break or a 3 days break in the fighting of the battle, and the battle picks back up. Usually we distinguish battles with at least a week to 10 days amount of time in between the ending of actions and then the beginning of actions again. So once again, fairly interesting to see. Also, another thing to point out is that this is where the Wagner unit still supposedly is, according to Prighozin, and we can see that they're not moving at all, and this also comes as he says they have no ammunition. So it appears that these things are actually correlated to each other, believe it or not. If you don't have ammunition, it's really hard to move forward. So let's now get into those video clips showing what's been going on around the beautiful, fun area of Bakhmut. For example, the Wagner getting blown away in Soledar. Uh-oh. This has been marked as NSFW. Let me just drag this over to the other screen real quick, because it wasn't marked like this earlier. Now, let me make sure that I haven't gotten desensitized to this stuff, and it is NSFW, so let's see here. 1 second, y'all. It's just going under a quick review. Let's see. I'm not seeing anything all too questionable right now. You know, it's something, you know, it's one of those, I guess you could say, edgier videos that we've seen on this channel, but it doesn't appear to be that NSFW, in my opinion. Let me take a look at this here. Let me check around. Maybe it's at the end. Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. I guess that's what they're marking. It's a guy who's on fire. I guess that's what's being marked as a little bit questionable. So unfortunately, I can't show that clip to y'all because you know, the Russians and their propaganda is always a little bit questionable, and usually whenever we see it, we say liar, liar, pants on fire, and it appears in that video, it actually ended up coming true. The guy lied a little bit too much and his pants caught on fire. But if y'all do want to watch that clip, you can find it in the link in the description below. It's called the Day 363 map. It's the very last link down there, and if you click on it, you can watch that video for yourself. So with that, we're now moving on a little bit further into the northern flank of the battle, where we saw an L119, a British 105mm light artillery piece, firing at the Russians in the distance. Sadly, the audio has to be muted because there's music in it, but we can see them firing off this L119. And one thing that is definite... Oh, wow, look at that guy, the fervor. But one thing that's really interesting to note about the L119s is that their rate of fire is greatly increased as compared to heavy artillery pieces that are 155mm in size. This thing has a rate of fire like no other. You can see them throwing out rounds right there like no tomorrow. This is usually because the loading of this piece is far easier because the round is a fair bit lighter. We can see them still having some fun, putting the rounds into the chamber, making sure to keep this artillery piece firing like a fine sewing machine, going at a somewhat slower speed than the sewing machine, but still like a sewing machine nonetheless. And this guy, he is just eating the shells. And we see they're all having a little bit of fun. Everyone likes to have their little bit of fun on the L119. We can see the artillerist lining up the shot, firing it, and it's on its way down range to hit the Russians wherever they may be. But while the L119 isn't the largest and grandest artillery piece out there in the field, these things are invaluable, especially in laying down an incredibly high rate of fire onto Russian positions way down range and making sure to pepper the whole place as best as possible. Usually, this kind of smaller artillery is great for suppressions because the rate of fire and the shrapnel that they're able to fling around at such a speed can keep people down on the floor and not moving and not firing back. So these artillery pieces are really good in their own role. Moving on into the center of the battlefield around the area of Bakhmut, we've only had one video that we could locate to this place, and that was in the area of Prighozin, where we saw the Ukrainians pushing the Russians back. When you see this Ukrainian soldier here with an RPG in his hands, he's now walking down his snowy trench, a very snowy trench, into the open. The spirit of Ramsheed, it compels him. When you see him firing the RPG into the distance. We hear that guy getting a laugh at the end of it. Let's hear that again. That was a good laugh. I like that one. And it looks like it may have hit. From the laugh, I would assume that it certainly has hit what it was aimed at, and it's good to hear. Very good to hear. Very nice. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from this little clip and on into the southern flank, where we once again saw a pickup of activity, a pickup of action, and a little bit of fun for everyone involved, starting off with the Georgian Legion fighting in this area. You hear an artillery round flying over as the Georgians race forward across this open area and onto the wall of a burned out building. They now crouch, the group moves forward, looking left down the road, making sure it's clear, looking both ways as a matter of fact. You've got to be safe in these situations, just in case there's still traffic. The firefight's going on heavy in front of them, and the Georgians continuing to advance towards the fire. We can see the first man making a run for it, and the cameraman's now making a run for it as well. Spacing out to make sure that they're all not gunned down at the same time. Running into the next building, but sadly the video cuts out there. We didn't get to see what happened to the Georgian volunteers and the Georgian Legion after this part of the clip, but hopefully they give the Russians hell because it looks like they're moving with a great deal of speed. We're now moving on into the last bit of the southern flank, where we saw a Ukrainian T-64BV hard at work in the area, and of course, looking incredibly cool. It's also driving past, and some of y'all may get the symbolic representation that this is kind of supposed to be here, some dead sunflowers that have frozen in the field around the area of Bakhmut. So, quite cool to see. And also what's even cooler is that this T-64BV has a plow on it. We rarely ever see plows like this one on a T-64BV. So let's see if we can find out T-64BV plow. It's really hard to see any pictures because when you type this thing in, you don't see pictures of T-64BVs with plows, but you do see pictures of T-64s, Bulats, with the upgraded armor package, and those things look pretty cool. I like the little slats that he put on the explosive reactive tiles to make the turret look a little bit more round, or also to protect it from mud. I'm not really sure what those are for, but still, really nice addition. I like the way they look. We can also see another picture of a T-64BV right here, owned by the Ukrainians. But sadly, I can't... What the hell is this?
What in the world?
That thing is called the Bat because whoever designed this thing was literally bat crazy. Like, I don't know who in the world would design an engineering vehicle that looks like that. The Bat 2, a fast combat engineering vehicle with the engine, lower hull, and small road wheel suspension of a T-64. But who the hell uses this thing? Well, Allies received only small numbers due to its high price and the old and new vehicles served alongside during the late Cold War. So these things were actually quite rare. They were batty for sure, but also, Miss 77 said, Decepticon! Get out of here, you nerds, you transformer nerd. I'm just kidding with you, but I cannot...
You're roasted.
I'm just kidding. But I cannot find a single T-64 BV, speaking of which, to all of y'all, about a plow. I can't see it anywhere. But with that, we're going to have to just leave it there and move on into the next clip. But that is a very rare little apparatus on the front. Most tanks, most Russian tanks, are actually built with a plow attached, if y'all didn't know. And I'll try and show y'all one if I can get a good picture of the lower hull of a T-72. So there we go. Y'all see that little thing right down here that looks like it has hinges on it, and also these little fingers sticking off at the top of it at the bottom of the lower glacis? That is the dozer blade, and it's used, in theory, to allow this tank to dig itself an entrenchment. And I don't really know if it really works, because when you think about it, how the hell is it going to dig an entrenchment effectively when you're not digging for the treads? The treads are still going to be on level ground, and the plow, I don't really understand how it works. Also, this was taken during the Victory Day Parade, and you can see this stupid little drone camera thing that they made here to drive by the tanks to get a cool camera shot. It just looks stupid, but I thought I'd point that out. Anyways, we're now going to be moving on beyond that rabbit hole and out of the southern flank, because the Battle of Bakhmut, fortunately, has started to die, and it's good to know, because that means that the Russians are running out of steam, and they're no longer able to keep up the offensive momentums that they were able to for months on end in this area, finally being able to break through the Ukrainian first and second defensive lines in the north, and only the first defensive line in the south. The city of Bakhmut still holds strong, and the Ukrainians are inflicting a decent amount of casualties onto Russian forces in this area at this moment. We're now moving on down into the area of Donetsk, and specifically into the area of Avdiivka, where it appears that the Russians tried Volodar Part 2, welcome to the stupid world, and they tried to push up a small little attack force into the town, but it appears to all have been destroyed in the exact same location in the fields outside of Avdiivka, and from our accounts we can see 5 BMP-1s and 1 T-72B3 have been destroyed in this push completely. It looks like all of them were also destroyed in the exact same spot of the field, once again very Russian of them, and it's great to know that this little push towards Avdiivka was stopped dead in its tracks right in the icy cold. I guess you could say that the results of those Stugna anti-tank guided missiles that destroyed these vehicles was icy cold. So that we're now moving on into the area of Donetsk, and while I put this down in the Donetsk region, if we go to Twitter, you'll notice that it's actually 4 separate videos put together. So we're going to go to Twitter real quick, and it's like, click to see spoiler. But we're going to go over here. In Donetsk, Mariupol, Makivka, and Ilovaisk, anti-air defenses went off over the last 24 hours, and we're firing into the air wildly at things that nobody could see, and the Russian government has not made an official announcement about. We're going to watch each of these. This first one here was taken in Donetsk. We can hear the AA fire in the distance as they're firing up at the sky. It's something, but we don't see the tracers. We also don't know what they're firing at. We can finally see something out there. We hear car alarms going off from the AA fire.
Заебись.
The fire's still going on. So that's the end of the clip, and then it just loops again. And so if we move on into, and let me X out of that one, Mariupol, here's a clip from inside of Mariupol of the AA fire as well. This is a little bit more pronounced as they're actually firing surface-to-air missiles at whatever's flying over the city. Once again, we still have no idea what weapon was flying over that they were trying to shoot down, or whether it was a weapon or not. What if it was a drone? We still don't know. And even in the area of Makivka, just right behind Donetsk where we put this clip, you can once again see S-300 missiles being fired up into the sky, attempting to shoot down the craft. And in the last video, in the area of Ilovaisk, it appears that there was grad fire. And we also hear AA fire in the background too. So there were grads firing off in Ilovaisk, and then the AA was also firing up in the sky at something. So we have no idea what these things are. A lot of y'all have actually been saying that it may be ground-launched small-diameter bombs. They have not been announced to the public, but have finally made it to Ukraine, and they're being used there. We have no idea at this moment. There has been no official news that's come out. I would say it's somewhat likely that it may be ground-launched small-diameter bombs, but we're still not entirely sure, and it's incredibly bizarre to see that over 4 separate areas of I guess you could say the occupied regions of Ukraine, we've seen air defenses activated to try and shoot down whatever is coming over that region. So with that, We're now going to be moving on out of the area of Makivka and on into the area of Marinka, because everything around here rhymes. It's like reading Rainbow. Oh, we saw a Russian column get destroyed in Marinka, much like they did in Avdiivka, and it looks like they didn't do any better of a job saving themselves from getting killed. So here's the video. We see the little bright embers of light in the distance as one of them goes nuclear and starts sending guys and pieces up into the sky. We can also see the smoky remains of the vehicles, and we can also see that that tank literally ceased to be. It's been shredded into pieces and is sitting on the road with its turret a little bit further down. And now we can see a close-up look of what this looks like. And ooh, there's some BMPs and these things got ripped. We can also see some Russian clothes, some more BMPs, and a BMP turret. And another BMP. Call this a Cajun cook-up, because these things were cooked and seasoned Cajun style. Impressive, I'd have to say. And so with that, we're now moving out of the Donetsk region. It appears that over the past 48 hours, and I'll make sure to show this going back to the 20th and then the 19th. It appears that the Russians are making no discernible movement. It appears that they were able to make some micro movements up in a field, but beyond that, nothing significant whatsoever, and the Ukrainians still hold the line, and the Russians are still throwing guys into the line and not getting anything out of it. However, in the Volodar area, we did see that the Ukrainians were able to put a HIMARS strike down on the Russians in the region, and were able to destroy a decent amount of their equipment and their basing area. Most likely, we located this to Milkilske, but we're not really sure. This is the closest village, though, to Volodar. We can see the Russians looking through, блядь, and the whole thing's been ripped apart, блядь.
Проломила плиты. Второй этаж.
That guy said, блядь. He's now walking through the rubble up towards the building. And looking on down into the basement. Oh, блядь. My basement, it's all messed up. We can see Walter White's lab from Breaking Bad down here.
Seriously, like what was going on down here?
Well, yeah, we must cook. Yo, Mr. White, what we doing down here? Shut up, lad. We must cook. Cook like crocodile. What the hell's that? What in the world? What
Man, I
is
don't
this?
know.
Isn't this like something from a horror movie where some demon comes crawling out of the basement floor and eats you alive? What the hell is this thing?
Yes, that hole in the wall on Amityville Horror.
Oh. Oh, okay, it may have been the HIMARS missile coming through the roof. GNF said, Walter. Walter. Vitaly said, dang, that's deep. I know, it is deep. It's deep.
А тут спал Андрюх. Если бы она сдетонировала, то тут все нахуй бы и разлетелось. А тут...
Dude, when he walked around this corner right here, man, I was thinking he would walk around the corner, there's going to be some guy there in a blue jumpsuit going, hello, Clarice. I ate him with some fava beans and a nice canned tea.
Is that the guy who said he's going to get the hose again?
No, that was Buffalo Bill or something.
Oh.
She puts the lotion on her skin or else she gets the hose again. Put
Man,
the
I'm getting
lotion in the
nutcases
basket.
mixed up.
Now, yeah, your bad guys messed up. That's Buffalo Bill. The other guy, his name's Hannibal, and he eats people. So with that, that's the end of the clip, and it looks like we found Walter White's meth lab. We found where Hannibal is, and we also found where Buffalo Bill's putting the lotion on its skin, or else it gets the hose again. Pretty interesting. It's good to know that the HIMARS went straight through the building, messed the thing up pretty good. So we're now going to be moving on out of this little clip and on to the next one that we got from the Volodar area, where we also saw a Max Pro in use by the 71st Brigade. We'll go to Twitter for this. Also, Observer said fava beans are gross. I honestly wouldn't know. I've never had a fava bean. But let's watch this clip. Oh, they're playing music. But wow, look at these Max Pros. They even got the Ukrainian camo on them. Man, I'm telling you, the Ukrainians have really become big fans of these Max Pros.
Yes.
Like,
They're so cool looking, like mobile boxes on wheels.
yeah, you know, they got like Kirpies, Bushmasters, Wolfhounds. They have every single kind of armored truck and car there is out there in the world. But for some reason, the Max Pro is the one that's filmed the most. I mean, you see it firing off into the distance here on film, most likely in the area of Volodar, although the 71st Brigade is in a bit of a larger swath of the battlefield, so it may be Volodar, it may be elsewhere, but now the video loops back again. But I gotta say, really cool to see these Max Pros in action, and also with the Ukrainian camo painted onto them. We're now going to be moving on out of the area of Volodar, as there hasn't been a large amount of activity in battles here ever since the Russians got land blasted about a week and a half ago. They've largely stopped fighting, and we haven't seen much here since. Moving on down into the area of Arikhiv, though, and on into day 362, we did see the Ukrainian drones drop some F1 grenades onto the Russians. However, this was not an F1 race. This was a... I don't really know what kind of pun to say here. An F1 slaughter? I don't know. I mean, you see a Russian right there. And it looks like he's sleeping. Like, he's legit sleeping. The bomb was dropped. And he's like, oh, bleed! And it's too late. He's like, bleed. And these sex. The auto auxiliary light has been enabled. The auto auxiliary light is now on. And that's the end of the clip, but I guess if we got one thing out of it, it's that the auto auxiliary light has been disabled, sir. So we're moving on to day 363 of the news, where we saw an ATGM hitting some Russian infantry. This one's been marked. What in the world's been marked? 1 second, let this go to review real quick. It's only 20 seconds long. It's not like anything bad can happen in 20 seconds. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, now I see. Okay. I didn't really pay attention to that the first time, Matthew, but there were little bits. So sadly, I can't show that one because there's been Reese's Pieces made in this one. But if you do, if you do,
that's a bad image to get on my mind.
If you do want to see this one, you can go click on the link in the description below. Also join the new Discord, by the way. The old one will be shutting down on the this upcoming Friday because we're replacing it with a brand new one. But if you do want to see little Reese's Pieces, make sure to go into the link in the description below, click on the day 363 map, and you can check these guys out and watch them get turned into Play-Doh, Reese's Pieces, and any other fun tips and tricks. So with that, we're now moving on the Arikhiv area and on into Vasilivka, where we saw a Ukrainian soldier posing in front of a damaged BMP-3. And man, this pic is nice. Also notice how baggy his pants are and like how filled they are with probably ammunition or something similar. This guy is going on for the long haul here with how his pants are like filled with stuff. But still, really nice to know they were able to take out a BMP-3 in this area, and it looks like it's not in completely destroyed condition from what we can tell, and they may be able to salvage it and reuse it back on the front lines for themselves. So once again, pretty neat to see. We're now going to be moving on all the way from that damaged Be and on into our southern front line analysis, because the southern front is a lively place filled with lively people. Let's take a look at the 20th, the 21st, and we're not seeing anything down here. Nothing at all. Nothing has literally moved at all. And of course, according to the great philosopher Bophides Testicles, he said, a front line that does not move is in fact a dead front line. And I would have to agree with Bophides Testicles, because this is certainly an immobile front line. The Russians are doing absolutely nothing down here, and we still have not seen the 500,000 man offensive kick off yet. And I'm sure we'll see it because there's 500,000 guys in it. It's not like Five Guys Burgers and Fries or anything where you can just slip where they can slip by because they're just 5 dudes. It's 500,000 guys, so we will definitely see them when they eventually hit the lines, because just to think about it, the actual combat force of 500,000 additional soldiers, let's just assume 100,000 of them are frontline soldiers, and they all get thrown onto the front line at the same time. They did that with about 200-something thousand guys, all the way from Kyiv to Kherson way back at the start of the war, and we'll definitely see something like that if it happens over an incredibly small part of the front, like the southern front. But so far, we haven't seen that yet. But, of course, maybe we will one day. I'm hoping that the Ukrainians are the ones to kick it off first, but we'll never really know for certain. Is that right, Matthew?
Never know for certain.
We'll never know for certain. We'll never know.
I'm not even sure what he's asking, but I'll say that anyway.
Yeah. So with that, we're now moving on all the way from the Zaporizhian front, from the Donetsk front, from Bakhmut, from the northeast, from inside of Russia, from deep inside Russia. Get down deep in there. And then all the way back to the location unknowns. And the international news too. And even the news in Western Ukraine. We've covered just about everything there is so far on the war in Ukraine today. And interesting enough, what's the weirdest thing about this is that we've rounded out the most of the news except for the speech almost 8 minutes in advance, although I had more news to cover tonight than normal. But nonetheless, it's now time for us to move on to the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 363 of the news of the war in Ukraine, and just a few days before our Friday 1-year anniversary podcast. And so with that, without further ado, here's the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky. So let me get the setup right here. Let me unmute it. And here we go.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Сьогоднішній день почав із засідання Ставки розширеного і детального, включно з доповідями з передової від наших командувачів на найгарячіших напрямках. Головнокомандувач Залужний доповів щодо загальної фронтової ситуації ворожих ракетних ударів по наших позиціях. Звичайно, особливі емоції викликають доповіді щодо Донеччини, Луганщини. Робимо все, щоб стримати там ворожі атаки, постійні інтенсивні штурми, яких Росія не припиняє, хоча і зазнає там шалених втрат. Генерал Сирський доповів про Бахмутський та Лиманський напрямок, жорстокі бої, принципові бої. Робимо все, щоб підтримати наших хлопців. Генерал Тарнавський доповів щодо боїв на Авдіївському та інших напрямках. Окупанти застосовують там увесь спектр зброї проти наших хлопців, включно навіть зі сльозогінними гранатами. Але дуже важливо, попри увесь тиск на наші сили, лінія фронту змін не зазнала. Я дякую за це усім нашим бійцям, усім солдатам і сержантам, офіцерам і генералам, які захищають відповідні фронтові напрямки. Були на ставці доповіді інших командувачів та керівників наших сил оборони і безпеки. Наєв, Північ та Осува, Одеса, Москальов заслухав їхні доповіді. Ситуація без суттєвих змін. Розвідка. Керівник ГУРМО Буданов щодо реальної ситуації російських загравань з риторикою про стратегічну зброю, зовнішня розвідка, Служба безпеки України, сили МВС та Нацгвардії, прикордонна служба, міністр оборони, інші представники уряду. Тримаємо повну увагу до кожної деталі нашого плану оборони та амбіцій ворога. Була і доповідь прем'єр-міністра України Дениса Шмигаля щодо ситуації в енергетиці та процесу відновлення нашої енергосистеми після російських ударів. Хочу відзначити, ми маємо хороші новини, хороші результати, і це здобуток усіх наших енергетиків, ремонтників, представників центральної і місцевої влади, які виконували відповідні завдання. На більшості території України забезпечуємо енергетичні потреби людей і підприємств. Продовжуємо наш дипломатичний марафон для посилення українських воїнів і всієї нашої держави. Зустрівся сьогодні з делегацією Італії на чолі з прем'єр-міністром пані Джорджією Мелоні. Італія принципово і потужно підтримує нас в боротьбі за незалежність. Є новий пакет оборонної підтримки, що включає, зокрема, ППО. Є готовність Італії співпрацювати разом із нами для реалізації формули миру. А це в тому числі і такий важливий пункт, як справедливість. Тобто трибунал для агресора, компенсаційний механізм для України. Обговорили сьогодні нові санкції проти Росії. Я вдячний усім італійцям за історичну підтримку України на шляху в Євросоюз. Коли ми здобували кандидатство, позиція Італії дала дуже важливий імпульс позиції усього Євросоюзу. Цьогоріч, я вірю, ми зможемо досягти ще більшого прогресу і зробимо все, щоб вийти на початок переговорів щодо членства України. Сьогодні зустрівся з делегацією Конгресу США. Це важливий сигнал, дуже важливий для нашої держави, усього регіону і світу. Вчора президент Байден в Києві. Сьогодні представники Конгресу, а саме члени Республіканської партії. Наша співпраця з Америкою не припиняється ані на день, ані на хвилину. Ми разом дієво зміцнюємо глобальну безпеку. І, до речі, розгублені скарги, що звучать із Москви, є лише зайвим доказом нашої ефективності України, Сполучених Штатів та усього вільного світу. Ще одне. Російська армія сьогодні вкотре по-звірячому обстріляли Херсон. Є поранені, є загиблі. Мої співчуття усім, хто втратив рідних. Цей російський обстріл не мав і не міг мати жодної військової мети, як і тисячі подібних російських обстрілів, які є справжнім посланням Росії світу. Держава-терорист ударами ракет по вулицях міст, по житлових будинках, по школах, по аптеках і лікарнях, по церквах, по зупинках автобусів, по ринках, по електростанціях намагається сказати світу, що з терором нібито варто рахуватись. Я впевнений, що ми поставимо на місце державу-терориста всі разом, українці і світ. Наша армія, наша розвідка, наша служба безпеки та інші українські сили знайдуть і знищать тих, хто завдає цих жорстоких ударів по Херсону, по інших наших містах і регіонах. А ширше ми доведемо, що рахуватися варто лише з людяністю, лише зі статутом ООН і лише з правом кожного народу жити вільно і захищено від терору і таких божевільних агресій, як російська. Я дякую всім, хто захищає нашу державу. Я дякую всім, хто воює за Україну на фронті прямо зараз, хто тримає наші кордони, хто береже наше небо, наше море, хто виробляє і постачає техніку та боєприпаси для наших воїнів і хто забезпечує нас якісною розвідувальною інформацією. Слава нашим воїнам, вічна пам'ять усім, чиє життя забрала Росія і ця війна. Слава Україні!
And with that, that was the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky, wrapping up our day 363 news of the war in Ukraine. And of course, rounding out this news segment as well. I thank you all so much once again for watching this channel tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure and a great honor to know that so many of y'all find this channel to be a credible source of news, and I hope that y'all enjoyed it enough to make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and also comment, as it helps our channel to keep on running and also lets us know that we're doing a fairly good job if you hit that like button. Right now, we're currently in the like year of 1896. A very interesting year, as I believe that's the year McKinley was shot. I think that may actually be 1898. I'm not really sure. Anyways, McKinley was shot at some point. So that, I thank you all so much once again for watching. We're now moving into the question segment, where we're going to address all the polls that have been thrown up throughout the rest of the channel, and also address all of the super chats that we've gotten tonight, as well as many live chats as we can, of course, super chat permitting, of course. And so with that, thank you all once again, and let's get right into it.
All right, so for our final question segment, we have 4 polls to address. And the very first one says, announced today, Russia suspends participation in crucial nuclear treaty with the West, and what are your thoughts? 61% said they didn't abide by it anyway. 19% said that is a huge deal. Russia is wild for that. 5% said unsure, and 15% said no concern at all, it's tit for tat. And I'm going to go with the 61%. I would guess that they didn't abide by it anyway, because Russia doesn't seem to respect the West at all at this point. But Enforcer, what say you?
Russia has never respected the West. The only time they appeared to have respected the West was when they were straight down on their luck in the 90s and the early 2000s. That was only a mere semblance of respect. They didn't really respect us back then either. And I would say that it's fairly surprising to think that the nuclear treaties have lasted this long. And to see that they've finally been broken now, or at least they pulled out of them, is something fairly interesting to note. So, in my opinion, I would have to also agree with the 60% to say that this is a fairly big deal, considering that I'm not one for nuclear rearmament and nuclear arsenal expansion. I'm more so into the limiting of nuclear weapons into its smallest amounts. So, don't like to hear that, and hopefully we can get back on the track to denuclearization, but I didn't really expect this to last too long. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our second one says, some say the West warning China against sending weapons to Russia is hypocritical, and what are your thoughts? 29% said it is hypocritical, 13% said unsure, and 58% said it is not. And I have to admit, I'm kind of shocked that 29% said it was hypocritical. I'll agree partially with that, because China is looking out for their own interest by potentially wanting to send weapons to Russia if they haven't already. But at the same time, we have to draw a distinction because the West is supplying weapons to a country that has been attacked in a illegal manner, and China is about to try to send weapons to a country that is the one who's illegally attacking. So that's a big distinction in my mind. So I'm going to go ultimately with the 58% that says it's not hypocritical. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say, I would actually have to go with the 29% that said it's hypocritical, and I would say it is, but I have to counter that immediately by saying that's the whole point of foreign diplomacy. It's hypocritical in nature. You always want to encourage your allies and yourself to do things that are not beneficial to your rivals, and always condemn your rivals for doing things that may be beneficial to their interests. That is the geopolitical game in a nutshell. It's never supposed to be fair. You're never supposed to sit there and go, oh, well, you know, if the United States invades Iraq, then we have to let the Russians invade and annex Kazakhstan. You know, it doesn't work that way. You have to sit there and look out for your interests and support your interests, and then condemn other people's, I guess you could say, pursuits and their interests on the other hand. It's never supposed to be fair. It's never supposed to be non-hypocritical. It's hypocritical by nature. But at the same time, I would have to say that it isn't in a way, considering that everyone, including the Chinese, have agreed that the Russian invasion of Ukraine was completely illegal. So I wouldn't really get why the Chinese would support a country that they've said should be coming to peace and that their actions were largely illegal. But on an actual standpoint, looking beyond that, of us sending weapons to Ukraine, and then telling them not to send weapons to Russia, although that would be within their geopolitical interest to do so, it is a little hypocritical. But at the same time, that's how geopolitics and diplomacy is played. So with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well, in my opinion. And also, I think that's something of a misnomer. Everyone always acts like everything's supposed to be fair. And, you know, on a person-to-person level, it's supposed to be fair. You know, that's usually the goal you want to go for there, is when you're dealing with people, you want it to be fair. But when you're dealing with countries on an international level, and the country that you're dealing with is a rival, you never want to be fair with them. You always want to be unfair with them. That is just how the game's played. Like, for example, I'm trying to think of some good examples where we've been unfair to foreign countries. Like, for example, when the Soviet Union put missiles in Cuba, but we had nuclear weapons based out of Turkey on their northern coast aimed directly at Russia. That was a little hypocritical in a way for us to say they couldn't put missiles in Cuba. But that's how it works. You're trying to make sure that you have the upper hand and that they're pressured into never getting an equal hand or leveling the playing field. That's just how it is. That's how our military operates in the United States. We always make sure that our weapons are nearly 15 to 20 years ahead of pretty much everyone out there, except for our allies, which we usually export our weapons to. So that's another instance of I guess you could say, the geopolitical situation being unfair, and it's got to be unfair for you to stay on top. So with that, I hope that does address the comment, the poll fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the third poll says the Wagner mercenary group leader Prighozin accuses Russia's defense minister of treason. And what are your thoughts? 78% said he's next in line for a window. 4% said unsure, and 18% said, it seems that he gets away with this quite often. And I gotta say that I would be shocked that if he is not next in line for a window, they probably want to get him, and I really don't know why they haven't gotten him yet, because he is running his mouth quite loudly, especially in the proximity of Putin. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that one day, considering that Putin's kind of sick, I bet you Prighozin, like, Putin will have Sergei Shoigu come into, like, his dining hall, and he'll be like, "Come, please sit, please." And then Sergei will sit down on, like, the 500-foot long table on the other end, and then Putin, like, claps his hands like that, and someone comes in with this giant, like, silver platter, and they take the top off, and it's Prighozin, and he's got an apple in his mouth, and he's going, and Putin's like, "You don't want to end up like him, do you, Sergei?" And Sergei be like, "Oh, no, no. Then you better not say anything in the public that's negative." And then he just snaps, and like Prigozhin's so screaming, and then they put the lid on top of it. They just roll him back out, and then Sergei says, "What are we eating? We're eating him." Because, you know, they're starving to death in Russia. But anyways, I feel like that's probably the way it's going to go. I can't believe he's been saying such brash things against the Russian government, like they're lying to y'all, because that's not a good thing to say, especially considering that the Russians are very, very sensitive about people coming out and saying that they're being lied to. So I'm pretty surprised he's not in the process of finding a way to a window. So that, Hope that does address that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the fourth one, which is the last one, says Moldova says that it is ready to defend against a potential Russian invasion/coup. And what are your thoughts? 36%, which is the most popular option, said Moldova is prepared to defend. 12% said unsure. 26% said they are partially prepared, and 26% said they aren't prepared. And I would have to guess, just from the size of Moldova, that they're probably only partially prepared. Although I was proven wrong with Ukraine because I didn't think personally that they were going to withstand Russia for a long time. But it turns out I was bad wrong on that. And Ukraine has a lot of fight in them for their own territory. But with Moldova, I'm going to lean toward partially prepared. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say they're largely prepared because what I heard today, and this is why I didn't even include it in the news, so the Moldovan government said the Russians are planning on taking the Chisinau airport, which I believe is the pronunciation of their capital, and then flying in more troops. The problem with that, however, is that to fly in more troops, they either have to fly over a NATO country, such as Romania, or they have to fly through Ukraine, and they're going to get shot down either way. Because it's not really like it's really easy to fly a massive Ilyushin 76. That's cruising speed is. Let me go down to the stat card here. Let's look at the cruising speed of an Ilyushin. The maximum speed of this thing is 560 miles per hour, so it may as well be about the speed of a commercial airliner at its top speed. That's not its cruising speed. It's probably a little bit lower than that. So they're going to fly one of these things in, maybe at 13,000 feet or so. You're definitely not skimming this thing along the ground. And you're going to fly it over Ukraine or Romania and not expect to have it shot down. I would say that that's highly unlikely, and there's really no way for them to reinforce their forces inside of Moldova and Transnistria at all, because the only way they can reach Moldova is by air, and there's no way to reach them by air currently, because either path they take, they'll be shot down. So let's take a look at where the airport is real quick. Let's see here. Someone said it's not close to the capital. If this is it, that's it. That's actually not that far. If we pulled out a ruler, I think that's probably just like about 5 miles. So it's about right. Yeah, it's right there. So let's whip out a ruler. Let's take a look at this. And that's literally just 3 miles. That's not that far at all. That's just a small little jaunt, like a jog or something that some people do in the morning. So I would highly expect that most Russian support aircraft would get shot down before they even arrived here at this airport, and also they have to deal with Ukraine, and that's going to be a bit of a problem on its own. And then the Ukrainian, man, imagine Zelensky getting on TV and going, "We shot down 4 Ilyushins today, about 1,000 Russians killed, it was a good day." It's like, holy hell, it's like they just wiped out half the Russian army. But yeah, I'm not really seeing it for that reason. So I feel like they're largely prepared because it's a one-on-one conflict with the Transnistrians. They're almost the exact same in size. And then they'll have the unlimited backing of the West and NATO and making sure to put that down. And then maybe, even at that point, considering that the Ukrainians border Moldova, the Ukrainians would be like, hey, we're sending guys in, and then they just start sending guys in across the Moldovan border to crush the Transnistrians along with the Moldovans, because it's not really like that would be escalating the war. They're already at war with the Russians, and they could say that this buildup of Russian forces in Moldova is a threat to them, so they're going to go in there and crush them along with the Moldovans, and I'm sure the Moldovans wouldn't protest that at all. So
I think that Ukraine might be Moldova's one of their best defenses, although could the Russians just not launch from Crimea and send them directly over to a quicker route to Moldova?
No, because they still have to fly over the Odessa kind of a peninsula that Ukraine owns down here. And there's a decent amount of air defenses throughout here because you have to remember this is where a lot of the cruise and ballistic missiles fly when they're trying to reach further into Ukraine. So the Ukrainians pretty much have this giant surface-to-air missile defense system down here along the coast to shoot down anything that crosses it. So I would say probably unlikely. We're probably not going to see...
Now tell me real quick, because I heard this somewhere. I'm not sure if it's true, though. Is Russia not building up ships right there on the coastline near Odessa?
No, because they would be destroyed by anti-ship missiles.
Okay, that must have been false then. A lot of misinformation running around Twitter these days.
Like, wait, they said how close? Like 5 miles, 10 miles? Like, how far?
Oh, they said near the coast. I'm assuming they weren't that close because they'd be shot at.
Man, I mean, like, if they're quote-unquote near the coast, the Ukrainians have anti-ship missiles that can reach out 150 miles. So that pretty much makes the entire area around right here inaccessible, unless you want to get shot. Yeah, so if they're near the coast, they're pretty much in the middle of the Black Sea near the coast. So with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. And with that, I think we're on to the next one. Well, actually, I think we're on to the questions.
Yes, and it is time for our super chat questions. And up first, we have a 50 from Trister1. Thank you very much, Trister, for that support. As always, he says, do you think IFVs like the Bradley would make a real difference without more tanks in a spring offensive or get wasted? I think the AFU are pretty good at using their resources.
The Ukrainians are incredibly good at using their resources, and I would think that any Western vehicles like the Bradleys and the tanks will probably not be wasted or destroyed early. The Ukrainians use their equipment fairly well, so now it's time for me to get on Microsoft Paint and draw a picture. It's time for that top-level graphics and animation class that I always worked on. Sorry, y'all. I burped there. But anyways, here's your infantry squad. Let's say they're kind of shaped in a wedge like this, moving forward. So they're moving that way. All right, and let's say we have another infantry squad back here. It's also in kind of like a formation of a triangle, and they're also moving forward this way. So with the Russians will take a tank from the rear. So here's our little tank, and we're going to put a little oval in that so you know it's a tank. There we go. So the Russians will take their tank, and they'll drive them out from the infantry. They'll drive them in front of them, and then down alone without any infantry support to wherever they need to go, and then they usually drive right into Ukrainian defenses and they get blown up. However, the Ukrainians will drive their tanks up behind their infantry or directly alongside their infantry and fire off rounds in support of the infantry, or they'll be way behind the infantry firing from there. So we know that most of their tanks that they've had throughout the war have rarely ever been destroyed because they don't use them foolishly. They're used very carefully and very precautiously to make sure that they don't get destroyed. So if the Ukrainians got Leopard 2s due to their armor protection and also the way they used them, I would expect they wouldn't be destroyed, and I'd also expect the Bradleys not to be destroyed either, because once they unload their infantry, they would probably also be used like light tanks in the rear behind the infantry, supporting the infantry in any kind of pushes forward or any kind of defenses. So I would say they're probably not going to lose them, and they'd probably be able to field those tanks and vehicles quite effectively, especially considering the kind of strategies they employ with them on the field. So with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, this would have never been possible. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right, and our next one goes to Avari Mandubratis, who puts in a $35 donation, and he has a hell of an improv skit. He says, Putin escapes Russia after a coup attempt and hides in a South Florida Russian restaurant as a bathroom attendant. Orange Man enters with a full bladder and sees Putin. Voice crack. Bernie's calls from 911 from a stall. Go.
What the hell?
The voice crack went perfect with that skit.
Oh man, this is going to be tough. So meanwhile in Florida, bliet, man, the exodus has been very hard on me, bliet. Oh, that's the sound of a mop. Man, I'm telling you, life has been very rough. I hope nobody notices me in here. The door opens. Man, I got a giant piss I have to take. It's absolutely huge. It's huge, but it's not as big as Russia. Oh, wait a minute. Hey, oh, wait a minute. I swear I know you from somewhere. Let me think. You don't know me, man. Oh, wait a minute. No, I remember that. You're Putin, aren't you? You're little Vladimir Putin. I remember you from back in the day. I kind of don't really, but I kind of remember you. Oh, Bliet, this is very, very embarrassing, Bliet. What do you want here? Boop, boop, boop. Hello, 911. Yes, I want you to know that half of this country, I don't know how to get this part out, but I want you to know that half of this country's leaders are in this bathroom. No, I'm not one of them. No, one of them's not American. What do you mean you're sending a social worker? But anyways, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does that fairly well. because the voices have been getting a little shabby lately because I haven't been able to keep them in practice well on stream. But I do thank you so much once again for the support of Ari and also throwing in a pretty funny skit. I hope that one was entertaining to say the least. And thank you so much once again for allowing me to do some voices on stream. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
The Sunken Grave said Vladimir Putin. That's a good one. I got a laugh out of that one. Good one. But the next super chat we have is from Tony Fleming, who puts in a $20 donation and says, "Yup, just for the hell of it, Dio Presso Liber."
Hey! And thank you so much for the support, De Oppresse Libre. And thank you so much for helping the channel to keep on running, because for the hell of it, you're helping us to keep this thing running for the hell of it. And so thank you for the hell of it, for helping this thing to keep rolling for the hell of it. And so with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you so much once again for the support. And I hope that does address that fairly well. T.S. Sullivan said, cringe. And why is he here? He posted cringe. But anyways, yeah, I mean, like, I have to admit, it's always kind of a little cringe, but it's funny. And that's what makes it kind of funny, is that it's kind of cringe. But anyways, with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope I addressed that one fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right. And our next one goes to Psyops, who puts in a 20. He says, well, the FSB won't let me be me. They tried to shut me down, Mr. Zelensky. What in the world? Psyops, what in the world is this? Let me send this over to the Enforcer for review. Review number 1 of the night.
Oh, I know there's many of them coming. You know, I feel like reading this out in a Richard Nixon voice. You know?
Oh boy.
Oh man. I'll give it a shot, Matthew. Well, the FSB won't let me be. They tried to shut me down, Mr. Zelensky. Oh, they tried to shut me down, but it feels so empty without me. Now jump back, wiggle your butts, and get steady. Sounds like someone's breaking in.
If people don't know that reference, they're probably thinking we're crazy right now.
Yeah, they probably do. Oh, wait a minute, hang on. I just realized where that is going. I just realized that now, reading it back through again. Listen, if the president does it, he's not guilty. But with that, we're on to the next one, and I hope that someone got the reference there. So with that, we're on to the next one, and thank you once again, Science, for the support, because without your support, this channel and this great country of ours wouldn't be able to keep on running. And so, with that, I hope that someone picked up that reference. I hope that someone did. Patting this out.
I said, no, you're butchering
but everyone else loved it. I saw everyone else loved it. Oh yeah, wait a minute, no, that was not Futurama. It's Call of Duty. Like the sounds like someone's breaking in. It's from Call of Duty. It's from some clip. I've never played Call of Duty, that one particularly. But
Slim Shady.
Oh, it's supposed to be like an Eminem rap. I don't know Eminem though. But with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And thank you so much once again for helping us to keep this thing running. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
And also Psyops. Oh, there you go. Up next, we have a $20 super chat from the Ukester, who says, POTUS visits Kyiv, then gives a speech of unwavering support for Ukraine. Let's see. He says, you won't cover it all because it's political. Would you have ignored FDR on 12/8/41, Churchill on 6/4/40? This was important news. Disappointed. But thank you for the support.
Well, I thank you for the support, Ukester, and I can't cover it because it became political, because when you went over there, there's a certain thing happening here in America, and so if I say anything about it, whether it be positive or negative, it's going to be taken political, because he had two options. He could have shown up to something here happening in America or something going on over in Ukraine, and for that reason, it became inherently political, and unlike FDR and Churchill, it's not necessarily like that, at least at the moment. And so I can't really comment on it for that reason, because it did become political. Sorry that you're disappointed about that, but I hope that everyone else understands that we try and steer away from politics as best as possible, because politics is, one, incredibly divisive for no good reason. It's way too divisive for what it really is. And the second thing is that it starts to divide people who support Ukraine into camps. And you want to make sure that people who support Ukraine are first and foremost focused on the support alone, and making sure that Ukraine wins this war instead of trying to make it into something a little bit more political. But still, thank you so much for the support. Hope that does address that fairly well. And we're on to the next one.
All right, and the next super chat goes to E King, who puts in a 20 and says, "Sounds like until China replenishes their munitions, Russia is running low and must supply the regular units with what they have left, giving them priority over the mercenary groups."
And I thank you for the support. That's pretty much what we're seeing right now on the lines, is that it appears that the Russians have run out of so much ammunition and equipment that they're now having to just throw the PMCs to the wayside and just keep the regular army running instead. And I've got to admit, it's not that good looking from my perspective. But anyways, I would have to say that is kind of interesting to see, and that's also why tonight's title was that the Russians are out of ammo, because it seems as though they may be out of ammo. So with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and just out of curiosity, I did throw up a poll about that issue a second ago. The Enforcer and us are pretty dead set on the no politics thing, but I'm interested to see what everyone else thinks. But real quick, let's see here. Thought I missed something, but I didn't.
I'm gonna have to take that one down because there's really no point in weighing it out and seeing if people like it or not, because I'm pretty dead set on never allowing it, because if we even start saying it may be acceptable, then it's a slippery slope where we just go and turn into pundits. So yeah, with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, so now that that poll has gone away, let me catch up in the super chats real quick. There we go. So the next one goes to Trister1, who puts in a 20. He says, "For Matt's computer equipment, or buy Matt a car." Yes, Matt's computer equipment needs help. Thank you very much, Trister. I got to say that tonight has been one of those nights where if something can go wrong, it did go wrong. Not only did my headset and the poll system fail for me, I'm having to look at it on a separate screen in a separate tab. Also, my phone wouldn't take pictures. I've never seen that happen. But Apple, you're doing me wonderful tonight. Thank you. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I would have to say thank you so much for the support. We will see about getting Matthew probably a new mic set instead, because I don't know what it is, but sometimes I can hear everything going on his end, and y'all can't. The reason why y'all can't on stream for the most part is that his volume is reduced by 30% because for some reason my microphone is picked up quite low. So that's the reason why y'all can't hear it. But on my end, I hear it incredibly well. I can hear static. I can hear keyboards typing. I can hear whenever he inhales in his nose right now. I've been hearing that for hours, but, you know, it's better than hearing everything. So with that, I thank you so much just to give for the support. We will eventually see about fixing that. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And also, it looks like a lot of people were not a big fan of that in the live chat, in the politics thing at all. And, you know, of course, we make sure, and I make sure, that there are no politics whatsoever in here at all, because, and also Enigma said, a no politics position is inherently political. Not really. I know where that's going. You know, I believe there's some kind of philosopher who said not liking philosophy is a philosophy, but no politics is the rule. We make sure to make it no politics, because if you make it political, then it just becomes a firestorm from there. So with that, we are on to the next one, and I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And thank you once again for the support.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Psyops, who says, "You would not believe your eyes when 10,000, let's see, Psyops has got me paranoid as usual. Let me read ahead a little bit. He says, you know what? Psyops, I'm sending this over to the Enforcer anyway, so that way he can read it all."
Can y'all believe it? So let's see what we got. Let's see what we got here. Would you believe? Oh. You better sing this, Matt.
Go right ahead.
You better sing it, Matt. You better sing it. He wanted you to sing it, Matthew. You have to sing it. It's a rule.
You can go right ahead.
He requested you, Matthew. He asked of you. You must sing it like the real Slim Shady. Oh, come on, Matthew. You must. Hello?
Go ahead.
Interesting. He asked. This is Psyops, isn't it?
Yes.
All right, all right. Let me see. You would not believe your eyes when 10,000 Putin lies come back to find my knives. You would fall asleep. I would like to make myself believe the planet Earth hates your face. Texas stinks. You sing this. You better sing it, Matthew. But still, with that, I thank you so much for the support, Psyops, and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope I sang that fairly well. And thank you once again for the support. I know you wanted Matt to do it, but Matthew is sadly not going to do it. So with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
But guess what, Psyops? Oh, there you go. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Marion Deemert, who says, "Why am I on timeout?" And Marion, I did see that earlier. The Nightbot sadly came through and saw you put in a name of a no-no person that we can't say in the chat. I think it was one of the politicians, but sadly, it wasn't me this time. It was the Nightbot. And Nightbot is a very bad bot sometimes. But thank you very much for the support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank you for the support, Marion. I hate to hear that happened to you. The Nightbot does not have any emotions or feelings for anyone. It is a machine, an automaton created by zaps of electricity and bits of metal inside of our computers. It is the pure amalgamation of terror and fear, what the Chinese Communist Party wants to see around the world, but for now, we've kept it contained and largely subdued by allowing it to feed on Russian bots and also whack the normal person out of the chat every once in a while. But I do apologize for that. We hate that the Nightbot did get you out of its own fervor and ferocity for blood and malice. But still, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the question fairly well. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you once again for the support.
And the next one goes to Psyops once again, who puts in another 20. He says, Enforcer reads this. So this time he wants you to read it, so let me send it over.
And let me see this real quick. We shall not deny a guest even the most ridiculous request. So let's see. Matt, why don't you want to show the nice people in chat Mr. Corgi? Why do you hate the LSA, Matt? They just want to see the best doggo.
Let me tell you, if Mr. Corgi wants to come on, I'm more than happy to. But last time we brought Mr. Corgi on was the Christmas address. That dog was up for 5 seconds, and then he ran off. He didn't want to stay.
He didn't want to stay. Yeah, he wasn't a big fan of staying. I will see about trying to get him on somehow, some way. I don't know how. I don't know where. I don't know when. But we will try and get him back on sometime in the future. So with that, I thank you so much for the support, Psyops. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running.
And the next one goes to BC Skyman, who puts in at 20 and says, Enforcers, have you heard that Russia may invade Moldova and instead install a new puppet government? Keep up the great work in Slava Ukraine.
And thank you for the support. I have been hearing about that. We didn't report on that tonight because it's highly unlikely in my mind. They might try it, but it's highly unlikely they'll be able to pull it off, because if they take the Chisinau airport, there's nothing they can do. There's not like they can fly planes in there, and a lot of people are saying it's a small strip of Ukraine they have to fly over, but that's not considering that surface-to-air missile defense systems protection doesn't end where... Also, I'm hearing reverb, but it doesn't end where the shoreline begins. It spans out into the sea. It's a large radius. So if a S-300 has a 150-mile protection radius around it, that means it can fire 150 miles into the sea if it's based right off the shoreline. So with that in mind, I would have to say it's probably unlikely that it would even happen. And hell, Ukrainian surface-to-air missile systems could fire at Chisinau from Ukraine because it's such a short range to that capital. So I have a feeling that it's probably going to be very difficult for them to pull off if they try. I'm not going to rule it out completely, but it's going to be very, very difficult for them, practically impossible from a logistical standpoint. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. I thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Jesus USCB, who says, Enforcer Matt, I'm running for president. LSA, will you be my VP candidate? And Viva Mexico, Slava Ukraine. And sure, why not? And thank you for the support, too.
And I thank you for the support, Jesus UCSB. I hate to hear that I have competition in the presidential election. Ooh, but still, it's fine. I will back you up. As long as our presidential terms do not overlap, I'll back you. It's just, of course, your political campaign has to have no political stances, at least for the moment. But still, I thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running, and I thank you so much once again for the support, and also being a Lee Spring Army tanker. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again for the support.
All right. And up next, we have a $20 super chat once again from Psyops. And this one, he says, is a serious one. He says, notice to all friendly LSA members, please use the Ukrainian spelling for Kyiv. The orc spelling is Kyiv with a K-I-E-V. To find out more great Ukrainian information, check out the Discord. It's brand new and shiny.
And thank you so much for the support, Sam, and plugging the Discord. We have plugged the Discord several times tonight, and also I would highly recommend that y'all join it. In the links in the description below this video, you can find the Discord server for this channel. It's called the Lee Spring Army Barracks, and it's where all the fun folks from the Lee Spring Army hang out. If you're in the Cool Kids Club, you go to the Discord channel. So make sure to go in the link in the description below, click on that, join the Discord, go through the little verification process to show you are a living human being, and you can join right away and get to typing it up and get to looking at the cool stuff, like how Kyiv is spelled, because it is spelled K-Y-I-V. The K-I-E-V spelling of it was actually a Russification of the name way back in the day, and that's also why a lot of people know Kharkiv as Kharkov or Kharkov, because back in the day that was also the other Russification of the name of Kharkiv. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for the support, and with that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Psyops again, who puts in another 20. And also, thank you, Psyops, very much for the generous support. He says, my response to the Strategic Arms Reduction Pact being dissolved, we need to start or restart the Star Wars program. Please look it up. Might have to use U.S. Defense Program Star Wars. Also, on our Discord, you can slide into Matt's DM. Hey!
Hey! And thank you so much for the support. Once again, fairly interesting comments, I gotta say. And, of course, thank you so much for supporting us a whole lot tonight, Psyops. You've really been helping out. And I gotta say thank you, of course, once again, because without folks like you, Psyops, this channel wouldn't roll. And so, I hope that does address the comment fairly well. I hope we addressed it fairly good. And with that, we're on to the next one, while I move up to the port city of Donsk, also known as Danzig. Take a look at it, because I was kind of thinking for a second, what the hell does this look like in the modern day? So with that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Oats Air, who puts in a 20 and says, I became an LSA member on day 8 of the war instead of day 96. Like I said a few weeks ago, day 8 was my first super chat, whereas day 96 was my first fundraiser donation. Found out of the mix-up of the dates while filing taxes. Oh, goodness.
Ooh. Well, I thank you so much for the support. I'm fortunate to hear that you found that out while filing taxes. Taxes are not fun. But I do thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And also really cool to hear... Well, actually, what the Lee Spring Army membership, I think you're thinking that the Lee Spring Army membership is by Super Chat. You do not have to send in a Super Chat to be a part of the Lee Spring Army. All you have to do is be a subscriber of the channel, and you are automatically a Lee Spring Army soldier. But still, very crazy to hear that your first Super Chat was on day 8. I think that would have been way, way early on, one of the first Super Chats we would have ever received. So I've got to thank you so much once again for the support, the continuing support in helping this channel out, and also I wish you the best of luck with paying taxes, because taxes are not fun at all. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And guess what? Guess what, y'all? We're on to the next one. But thank you once again.
And Psyop says you neglected his super chat.
What?
Yes.
Read it again. Reread the line.
Psyops wants you to look up the Star Wars Defense Program. He says you did not do it. Shame on you.
Star Wars Defense Program, or Star Wars Defense Initiative. Here we go. The Strategic Defense Initiative, which he described as a suicide pact. He usually said that about mutually assured destruction. Let's see here. Extended range Nike. That does not look like a shoe. Let's see here. What else do we got? The bright spikes extending below the initial fireball of Operation Tumbler Snapper test shots, also known as the rope trick effect. Wow, these nuclear scientists came up with... Come on, y'all, it's nuclear destruction. Millions of people would die in this kind of situation. We're going to call it the rope trick effect. Oh, man, people have had a sense of humor since the beginning of time, especially with dealing with macabre. But anyways, let's move on down. So let's see here. the extended range interceptor. So it appears that the space-based interceptors were kind of dropped a little bit quickly in the process. But here we are. We finally made it here. Here's the little lasers that would supposedly shoot that down. I feel like this nowadays actually could be a reality as compared to when this was coming out, because laser technology was incredibly archaic at this point. Nowadays, we can actually destroy munitions mid-flight, down here on the surface with laser weapons. So fairly interesting to see they had that idea all the way back in the day. And also a fun fact, the legislative building here in the state of Alabama in Montgomery, which is behind the Capitol building, just to add on a little bit to the Star Wars information, it's right back here. It's the Alabama State House. The legislative room in that building is actually called the Star Wars room because two guys got in a fight in there and like pulped each other back in the 90s, so then it got the name Star Wars. But anyways, moving on from that and back into this, this is really interesting, really neat. Oh, look, brilliant pebbles.
Is that the artist?
No, that's the thing. That's like the technology. It's called brilliant pebbles.
Huh, that's weird.
Oh man, imagine. Okay, hang on. Well, I'm gonna have to break the no politics rule. We will have to mention the president here for the voice impersonation. Imagine a nuclear war happened and this thing, Brilliant Pebbles, shot down the nuclear weapons, and then Reagan comes out. Me and Nancy watched the Brilliant Pebbles shoot down the nuclear weapons. It was really something. It's just like, what? It's like, that sounds like something you put in a fish tank. Brilliant Pebbles. Like, that sounds like a brand of fish rocks, but I'm not gonna dog on it. Apparently it was never made. But this thing is quite interesting, but fairly cool nonetheless, the entire Star Wars program, and only something that people talk about every once in a while is this thing. So with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep running subs. And I'm sorry that I glazed over that, because I thought that I had gotten that fairly well, but sadly we glazed over it and made it a Krispy Kreme donut. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next super chat goes to Johnny R. Peterson, who puts in a 20 and says, Enforcer, excuse me, have you reported on this? Norway on February 16th approved a 7.4 billion euro support plan for Ukraine as part of a 5-year support package for Ukraine.
Actually, I didn't hear that. That's incredibly generous of them to make a 5-year support package. That means that the war will end and they'll still be supporting Ukraine, which is kind of wild. So with that, thank you so much for the support. Really wild to hear. I did not hear about that, and that's really cool to hear, and great to know that the Norwegians are supporting them that well. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for support and sharing that little bit of tidbit of information with us.
All right, and the next one goes to Avari Mandubratis once again, who puts in another 20 and says, with the Russians now using chemical munitions on the battlefield, will we see Ukrainian beards being shaved off? And do you think the U.S. and NATO are stockpiling military-grade NBC PPE for Ukrainian soldiers?
I don't know if they're stockpiling NBCs for the Ukrainians, and if the Russians start using chemical weapons, you have to remember that chemical, biological, or nuclear weapons draws the United States directly into the war. We apparently are not classifying tear gas as chemical weapons, because we've seen the Ukrainians and Russians use them, and beyond the videos, we haven't heard a lot about them from Western governments, so it appears that that's not really a concern. So I don't think they're stockpiling that, because once those would have to be used, and the Ukrainians would have to be supported by that, we're probably already there and mostly carrying the weight of what the Ukrainian army would have done just a couple of weeks before. So with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Psyops once again, and this one is going to review. Ding, 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 ding,
ding. Look up the Velvet Ant. I know a place. Oh no. Well, we'll pull them up. We can't read the rest of that, but we will pull up a Velvet Ant. They're cool. I have seen one, I think. Let me look at it. Dude, those things were all over the South. I've seen this. We've seen this thing before.
And of course, there's a picture of Cody Peterson getting stung by.
I'm gonna get stung by a cow killer. Ooh, man, I think his channel actually dropped off, didn't it? Let me go to his YouTube channel and see.
I think he got stung by pretty much about everything. Oh.
Wow, he's got 20 million subs? Goodness gracious. What are his recent videos doing like, though? let's see here, 10 days ago. Let's go to his most recent videos.
Or was he trying to find a deadly viper? Is he trying to get bit by that too?
Man, he's sadly kind of dropped off the analytics curve because this one got 4.4 million views, but the rest of them, well, these are actually doing really good from like 6 months ago. But it looks like YouTube dropped them. I remember watching some video talking about how YouTube's kind of like dropped them off the analytics, and it looks like it has, because over the course of a month, this video's only gotten 250,000 views and he's got 20 million subs. Kind of sad, because I remember back in the day, way back in the day, years ago, I watched Coyote Peterson because he made the nature stuff fairly interesting. I guess you could say it was kind of like the American version, at least on YouTube, the YouTube personified version of Steve Irwin for America. But then again, he got stung by everything, and Steve Irwin didn't do that. But still, really interesting channel. Sad to see the analytics machines dropped him pretty much, but still, I thank you all so much once again for bringing that guy up and, you know, bringing up that thumbnail, because that's something. But moving back on to what Science was talking about.
Wait a minute. Syop said he was dropped by the algorithm for self-harm. They're going to take you off the algorithm for getting stung by an ant.
Really?
Is that for real the reason Psyops? That is insane if that's the reason.
That is stupid. Like he's doing it. He's not. Well, okay, that's just dumb. I can't even go into that. YouTube makes plenty of goofy decisions. That's probably one of the goofier ones I heard. But anyways, these little velvet ants are something that we've actually seen down here. I remember seeing one. Remember, man, we used to see these as a kid where we grew up and we would like stomp them because we were kind of scared of them. And
no, we never saw these. I guarantee you, we never saw these.
We saw some kind of a fuzzy red ant. Let me just type that in. Fuzzy red ant.
No, we never saw these.
Dude, I swear we saw some of these, man, because I remember stomping a couple of them, like 2 or 3 of them. It's this one. It's this one. It was literally that one, man. The same color and everything, same size and all that. I stomped it, like, right outside of our house when we first moved there in, like, the first 2 years. I was like, ew, that thing looks creepy. So, like, crushed it. Or do they live in the South? Because I swear I saw a little red ant down here. One second. Red velvet ant. Let's see. Map. Let's just type in red velvet ant map. You see? They live in the South. You see that green area? That's where the populations are introduced. They're here.
Well, howdy, ant. That ant suddenly has a southern accent.
Well,
also, I saw somebody say the ants are suing YouTube, question mark. I saw Psyop say something about YouTube's getting sued in the Supreme Court. They're getting sued for promoting self-harm. Huh. That's a strange lawsuit.
Yeah, that's really weird. But anyways, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And I was right, man. Those things do live in the South, and I saw one of those things, and I stomped that thing when we were kids. But with that, we're on to the next one. I'm glad I'm stomped that thing, knowing that it had a terrible sting. Just imagine, like, me being, like, 10 years old and getting stung by that thing. Like, what in the world would that feel like? But with that, we're on to the next one.
And also, one more thing. I saw Try and Take Alaska said YouTube now calls it violence to get stung by an ant.
That's
interesting.
That's kind of ridiculous. You know, next thing you know, that kid, man, who said, "I've been stung by a wasp. I've been stung by a wasp." He's gonna be banned. Man,
boom, bing shilling. Your video's been taken down.
You know, before long, YouTube's going to have probably some incredibly boring content, and that's all that's going to be left. Because they're
really. What are they going to have like after they take everything down? That's actually like gaining the views. They're going to take all of it down.
Yeah, next thing you know, next time Mr. Beast gets some eye surgery for some people, they're going to go, boom, you're off, you're the Antichrist, and they're going to be throwing him off, and they're going to be throwing all the gaming channels off, they're going to be throwing us off, probably, in the future. I really, to be honest with you, it's crazy, but with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you once again for the sports hypes, and I hope we addressed that the best we can without reading off some of the other stuff.
All right, and the next one goes to 10K, who puts in a 20. And says, over 100 days ago, I dropped a 20, letting you know you guys were miscounting the days. You finally corrected the mistake, so today I drop a 20 saying, haha, I told you so. Slava LSA.
Well, thank you so much for the support. I don't know if back in the day we said you were wrong or not. I think we I think actually we counted them out and we were like, yeah, it's wrong or something like that. I don't know. I don't know what happened back then, to be honest with you. But still, I thank you for the support. And you were right. We were told that by Miss Disa, and we're like, we got to get this thing. We got to fix it. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right, and the next one goes to Stan Pollard, who puts in a 15 and says, for Matt, he needs a new Thai fund. And if USA puts sanctions on China, a lot of dollar stores will close their doors.
Oh,
That's true. That's true. And also, thanks for the Thai fund as well. I do need a tie rather than my red one, but thank you.
and I got to thank you for the support. Ties are important. Of course, they're very important. And I got to thank you for helping us to get a new one for Matthew. And some of y'all may be wondering, why am I yawning so early in the stream? It's only 11:30 local time or 12:30 a.m. Eastern time. And I just remembered that I never drank coffee before the stream, and that's why it's been really difficult to keep my eyelids open at this point. But still, moving on from that, I got to thank you so much once again for the support, helping this channel to keep on running, helping Matthew to get a new tie, and also once again, for helping the thing to keep rolling. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right. And up next, we have a $10 super chat once again from Jesus USCB, who actually puts in the Morse code. And the Morse code tonight was solved not only by Jesus UCSB, but also our JP's RCs, CFA, Rumpelstiltskin, JP's RCs once again, for some reason. I don't know why. Mark Hodges and Cliff Simonson. And they say, the Morse code says it's almost here. Make sure to show up on the 24th, only 3 days away. And I believe that's correct. And also, Jesus UCSB, let me know if that was actually used. I have a feeling that might have been a mess up in the spreadsheet.
And thank you so much once again for the support, Jesus UCSB. If that was you, let us know. But of course, you all got the Morse code message correct again, and the coffee. I wish I had coffee, but still, I thank y'all for deciphering the Morse code message. Of course, y'all are helping to keep that Morse code message alive for its final days. It will sadly be put to rest on the 24th. The final Morse code message ever will play, and that'll be it. So with that, thank you all. Well, actually, the last Morse code message will play the night before, because the intro that we have now doesn't have room for a Morse code message, and also is quite short. Compared to our normal intro right now that's about 12 to 13 minutes long, the new intro will only be 8 minutes and 30 seconds long. We've been trying to shorten that down, because at the beginning it was exactly 10 minutes long, but as time has gone by, it's gotten much longer. It's gotten up into the range of around 13 minutes. So we're trying to cut it back down and get it down to around 8. So with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, for deciphering that Morse code message, and to all of y'all who continue to do that job in the final days of the Morse code messages. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
And the next one goes to Uncle Grandpa, who puts in a 10 and says, this is my first super chat. I was poor for so long, but now have a job. And thank you, Enforcer Brothers, for all you do. Is the stream on Friday at the regular start time, and LSA forever. And thank you, Uncle Grandpa. We love kind words like that.
And thank you, Uncle Grandpa, for the support. And of course, thank you so much. It means a lot to us that people enjoy this channel enough to support us at all. And I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this thing to keep rolling. And also, the podcast will start at the exact proper time. It'll start at 10 p.m. Eastern time, like a normal nightly stream. It's just that we won't really be covering the news that night. We'll be running a bit of a talk show format with some stuff in between. That's pretty cool. So with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well. Thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Bob Anon, who puts in a 10 and says, isn't this war just a rerun of the Persians versus the Greeks? The enormous, let's see here. Let me send this over to the Enforcer for review. There's a lot of these tonight.
Oh, oh man, I get no respect around here.
Well, it's more in historical context. So, isn't this war just a rerun of the Persians versus the Greeks, the enormous slave horde of a dictator versus the free people of a democracy? Perhaps the Russians have already burnt those textbooks. Let's see. To be honest with you, I could kind of see that. The Persians, I don't know, because the Greeks were fairly advanced. They may have been a small country, but they were a fairly advanced country for their time. So I feel like that wouldn't be necessarily comparable. I would feel like it would more so be the Finnish Winter War, and also the Sino-Polish War. That would be somewhat similar. So with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well. And I thank you so much once again for helping to keep this channel running. Thank you so much once again for the support, but not a bad comparison nonetheless. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Midwest Vikinger, who puts in a 10 and says, the Enforcer and Enforcer Matt, here's a question. You think we should send a few of our mothballed Navy to rebuild Ukraine's Navy, or save that for the potential fight with China? And patch on the way soon, sir.
And thank you so much for the support. I can't wait to see the patch. And also,
As President of the United States, I would have to say that sending our aircraft carriers to Ukraine is going to be something of great concern.
honestly, I wouldn't send an aircraft carrier to Ukraine. One has to remember that Ukraine's population is somewhat small, and their navy is also small. An aircraft carrier would comprise nearly a quarter of their naval force on a single ship, so they wouldn't really be able to screen for the larger ones well. So it would make more sense to send them lighter things like corvettes and coastal patrol boats instead of anything larger than that, like a destroyer or a cruiser, because then it starts getting a little bit too cumbersome, and they don't really have enough supporting ships to make sure those operate properly. So with that,
I hope that does address the question fairly well. And Joel Zapster said, Nixon is alive, and I never left.
Almost flips everyone off, but then throws up the peace sign instead. Thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well.
And we're on to the next one.
And next up, we have a 10 from Slav Ukraini, who says, what tank do you think will be most effective in the battlefield, considering logistics, etc.?
I would say, yeah, I'm trying to think let me think probably the Leopard, really, because the Leopard seems to be getting on the front line the fastest, which shows that there is some kind of simplicity in its design compared to the Challenger 2 or the Abrams. And it also shows that it will have more time to sort out supply line issues because it'll be there for longer before the Abrams and the Challenger even gets there, and then they start trying to sort out all the issues with those. So I would say it's probably going to be the Leopard will be the best performing one, although the Abrams and the Challengers certainly are not bad tanks either. They're incredibly good. It's just that the Leopard seems a little bit easier to function. So with that, I thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address the question fairly well. And also, Marty M said the littorals are being mothballed. You know, I'm not really surprised either, because LCS ships, let me pull them up.
The littoral combat ships.
There were two classes. There was the Independence class here, which is a catamaran design, and then there was the Freedom, which is more of a conventional design. Both of them, by their own definitions, were terrible. They started to create cracks in the hull, specifically on the Independence class ships, which is kind of sad because they looked cool. I mean, like, by no mean these things look terrible. They looked really neat, but there was just some inherent design flaws with them. That comes with testing out the waters of new technologies, though, so it's not like this is some kind of embarrassment or disaster. We are the first country in the world to have littoral combat ships like these. It's just that, you know, they didn't really perform as well as we thought they would. And also, Lewis, we know that Lewis is from Britain. Wait a minute, no, he didn't say aluminium, he said aluminum. I misread that as aluminium. But still, it was a nice try. Sadly, didn't work. I would definitely not send these to the Ukrainians, considering that they're having some very considerable hull fracturing issues, because that means that the upkeep and the cost of running these things will get way more expensive. The cost will skyrocket as time passes. And also the observer said, nah, that thing looks horrible. It doesn't.
It does. I was about to say the same thing. It looks like crap. Like that design is very bad.
I thought it looked cool.
I don't know. That's a rough. That one looks all right, but not that first one.
You know, I still think, in my opinion, the Arleigh Burke looks better than both of them. Let me go pull that one up. This one's been around for ages, but I think it looks like a fairly good destroyer, like in terms of its aesthetic. Let me find a good picture.
Oh, that's classic.
Classic. It's classic. How can you not like this? It's classic. But still, with that, I hope we addressed the comment fairly well, and we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Commander Prankster, who puts in a 10 and says, sitting in the dark, no power due to the storm. my Motophone and Pine Buds, allowing me to watch the stream and can't keep me away.
And thank you for the support. Very wild to hear that through hails, storm, sleet, and rain, you're watching this channel on your Vodafone. Vodafone. And thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running while I try and struggle to stay awake because it is 11:30 and I've had no coffee. But still, thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. It's great to hear that we can't keep you away because I'm always happy to know that people enjoy the stream enough that they'll hop on anywhere and everywhere they can find themselves. And so, thank you so much once again for support. I hope you've been enjoying tonight's stream, and thank you for helping us to keep this thing running too. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
I saw Misk77 say Decepticon, LMAO. The only Decepticon we just saw was the designer of that first boat tried to pull a fast one on the government. That's the only Decepticon we have here. But anyways, our next one goes to Raphael Schneeves, who puts in a 10 and says, Happy Fat Tuesday. I will be giving up video games for Lent, plus going to Mass or watching the daily Mass for Lent.
Well, thank you so much for the support. And can you reread that one again, Matthew, real quick?
Yes, I will be giving up video games for Lent, plus going to Mass or watching the daily Mass for Lent.
And I thank you for the support. I was making sure to hear that again to try and find a way to respond to it. Sadly, kind of like politics, we generally try and avoid anything incredibly religious. We are Christians, but, you know, we try and avoid that because that also becomes a whole fight on its own. Because I remember one time we brought it up a little and then it became a huge battle. But I do thank you for the support, and very interesting here, and I wish you the best of luck on that. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope we addressed the comment fairly well. And we are on to the next one. And fun fact for everyone talking about those littoral class ships, did you know that they're actually made in these two buildings right here?
That's in Mobile.
That's in Mobile. Mobile. Look at this thing. It's in Mobile.
What the? Was that a boat?
Yeah, it was a boat. You buy me a boat.
You know what you can do? Yeah. I was about to say.
Oh, man. And then here's the U.S. Alabama. The USS Alabama. And then there's the drum. It's a submarine. Take a look
Oh,
at it.
man. That Alabama was something. Do they still allow visitors on that boat?
Well, yeah, man. It's a museum ship. What would they do?
I thought I'd heard somebody saying they were going to decommission it and like take it away or something.
No, man. Whoever said that, they crazy, man.
Man, that boat was scary. I don't know what age I was when we went on that, but I got stuck on the stairs on that boat. Couldn't move. I was frozen. Like the staircases were horrifying. Like you could see all the way to the bottom of the boat.
All the way to the bottom of the boat.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's there. But anyways, very interesting here, Matthew. Very interesting input. Also, look at how small a B-52 looks compared to the Alabama. That thing's huge. You know it. And they got a Pentagon down here too.
Huh. Oh, what could that mean?
They're trying to tell us something through the. But anyways, they're on to the next one. And also, I thank you so much once again for the support and letting us hear about what you're going to be doing on Lent. And with that, we're on to the next one. Thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Vlad Lozo1111, who says, Hi, Enforcer. Where can I get a hymn of Ukraine you have at the beginning of the stream? I wanted to post it on my Facebook on the February 24th. And thanks.
And thank you for the support. Good question. The hymn. Let's see. If you want the first song, that one's called To the Regiment. The second one's called The Cossacks Were Riding, and the third one's by Rockdar by the Ukrainian Army Band. And then the anthem we have is actually special. It's made by Vanilla RPG Soundtracks. So it was a channel legend. And so, sadly, that one's a little exclusive, so you can't find that one here. Also, that wasn't lag. I was just trying to fight the slumber. But still, you can find all three of those. Those are the names of them. If you type them on YouTube, you should be able to find them. And they're copyright-free, which is also kind of nice. So with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And the next one goes to CK Bold, who puts in a 10 and puts in 2 dots. I'm not sure what it means, but it's very cryptic. And thank you, CK, very much for the support as well. And we appreciate you like always. And thanks for helping to get the lights on. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Dino Res, who says 155mm shells cost 1,900 euros from Rheinmetall in the 2020-2021 contract. The price currently sits around at 3.3 thousand euros because of stockpile scarcity and lack of production capacity.
Man, I gotta tell you, man, the price of ammunition's rising around the country. You know that spill, Matthew.
Oh yeah, the gun store
Yeah.
spill.
Yeah, you know the gun store spill where you go in there and you look at an AK. They got like 9 AKs up on the wall. And you go and look at one and you go, oh, look, it's an AK. Yeah, you better get one while you can. It's going to be gone before you know it. And then you come back in a year and a half and they got the exact same 9 AKs on the wall. They didn't sell
It's either the fear-mongering gun store salesman, or you'll have the one that's always like bloodthirsty, like wants to go back to like a war zone or something.
I mean, you'll have that one guy. Hey, can I, you know, and like I'll tell you all this. My personality with guns is that they're just neat, and that's it. You know, like it's not a personality defining thing. I just like them. It's a hobby of mine. You know, it just is what it is. But you got those people in gun stores, Matthew. They're like, hey, can I check out that AK up there? They take it off the wall. Oh, this thing, it's going to kill every bird.
Oh my god,
like,
that scared the hell out of me. It was so loud.
And I'm like, and I'm always sitting there, man, whenever they say stuff like that, I'm like, dude, you just sound crazy. Like it's like just sit there and say, yeah, it's pretty good, you know. Like if I ever explained a gun to someone, I would be like, you know, it's fairly good. It won't jam. It's pretty nice looking, and also I've never really had a problem with it. I really like it. It's just nice overall, not bad recoil, something like that. But you know, instead they sit those people sit there, Matthew, and they sit there and hold it for a little bit before they give it to you, and they like track something in midair, you know, like they're looking at something and go, oh yeah, this should get them good. And you're like, are you okay, man? It's like, are you good? And then
there's some crazy folks at a gun store over in Bessemer, Alabama. We won't say the name, but my god, there's some crazy people over there.
And then also here's the funny part. You'll sit there and they'll be like, yeah, man, when I was in the military, I saw some wicked shit. And then you'll sit there and say, well, what was your MOS? I was a cook. It's like, what? It's like, what are you talking about? Or they'll sit there and say, I was an electrician in the Air Force. Like, there's a different thing in between a combat electrician and an electrician. I've had that difference explained to me by a combat electrician. Like, if you're an electrician, you're just on a base. You know, you're just keeping lights on. You're not doing anything. And I heard that from someone who said that was their job. And I was like, what? I was like, you're acting like this? Like, it's almost like that episode from Seinfeld where Elaine kept promoting that guy who was wearing all camo and stuff. He was like, slit their throats with a knife, crawl through the mud. And then she finally asked him, so why are you like this? He was like, a girl broke up with me. Really? That was it. But anyways.
Oh goodness.
What? That's
a bad thing to hear along with that other statement.
Oh yeah, that's true. But still,
somebody called out the gun store. Oh my
wait a minute.
They knew exactly who it was.
wait a minute, where is it?
It's Beeps and Eats finding food and treasure.
No.
They knew.
He knew it.
Does reputation get around to everyone? Does everyone know?
Oh man, it was insane in there. I can't even tell y'all some of the stuff we heard in there, but
some of the stuff you can't even repeat.
Yeah, you can't even repeat most of the stuff. It was wild. It's like, oh man. I can't even say anything about it. I feel like honestly, after we left that store, we had to sign a non-disclosure agreement or something like that with some of the stuff they said. But and also what was crazy is that there was like cops working in there.
That was the most like chaotic experience I've ever had in my life, going in that gun store. I'll never forget it.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would if they went in there. I don't think anyone would forget it. But we're not gonna say anything about it beyond that. We already said enough. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support, and I hope we addressed that comment fairly well.
All right, and the next one goes to Michael LTNV or ITNV, who puts in the 10 and says, I'm always late to the party, about 45 minutes behind live, but I really do appreciate all of y'all, and thank you all. And Matt, do you think USA will have another ammo shortage? Hopefully not, but you know, it seems like ammo shortages are like an ongoing thing now.
Well, way back a couple of years ago, it was an ammo shortage because everyone thought the country, you know, for some reason, society thinks society will collapse. I don't know why. I'm not even saying that sarcastically. I don't know why people think that. Because, you know, historically, nothing's ever hit any society where it just literally dissolved and there was no fragment of any kind of governance or society left or anything like that. But moving on from that, beyond the initial fear where everyone went and bought ammunition, some ammunition companies, some ammunition factories have had really hard times and shut down here. So we don't know like what the ammunition is going to be looking like in the future, especially things that come from Russia, considering that we're not on good terms with them right now, obviously. I don't know if well, I would hope that the Ukrainians wouldn't start exporting ammunition that they probably need for the war effort. And I hear that the Remington ammunition factory is supposed to be opening up again here in the future, mostly producing a large portion of the commercial calibers that a lot of people use. So we shouldn't be seeing a lot of ammunition scarcity here in the future. And hopefully we don't, because it really made it very expensive to be a hobbyist in the gun world, because ammunition of any kind got expensive. Like, I think 22 got all the way up to being about a quarter a round. And if you know what 22 was beforehand, which is like 2 to 4 cents a round, that is just being ripped off. That's being scalped practically. And that's what led me to not really shoot guns much for the past few years, is just because the ammunition was ending up totaling more than the gun itself. But with that, also, Beeps and he said, load your own. Man, that's expensive, though. That's so expensive. At least from what I've seen. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support, and I hope we answered that fairly well.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Joseph M. Sika, who says, I'm still calling Putla gets killed or overthrown. By the way, my father will be joining the stream on Friday. I talked him into it, and key. I'm still not sure what that means, but there you go. He says he retired a vice president at something bank, and I'll withhold saying the name of the bank so he doesn't dox him. And also his grandfather, ST. I feel like there was more to the super chat, but I don't see any more.
Dang. Well, I still thank you for the support, Joseph. And also, I can't believe you faked that like a couple of days ago. I still can't believe that, because Matthew and me were totally fooled by that. But it's good to know that you were faking it and we just acted out of an abundance of caution. It's better to be safe than sorry. But still, moving on from that and answering the comment, that's great to hear that you've gotten your father on. I hope he enjoys the Friday show, and I also hope you enjoy the Friday show too. Also really cool to hear that they work at banks and they're bankers. And so with that, thank you so much.
Also, he added in some more. He said, I was going to say that his grandfather started the oldest pizza shop in Boston back in 1903. Don't look it up. I know he'd be thrilled to see you guys take a look at it.
Well, I do thank you for the support. I'm getting mixed signals there, because you said don't look it up, and then you said he'd be thrilled to see you guys take a look. Oh, wait a minute, he may be wanting us to look at it on the podcast night. I don't know. I don't know if we'll be able to, because the amount of time, we're going to have an hour and 30 minutes of guests on, and then we're going to have about an hour of us being there. So I don't know if we'll have enough time to cover everything, because there's a lot of stuff that we already have lined up to cover on that night stream. But I will see about doing it, because that would be pretty cool. So with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that comment fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one. Thank you once again. Also, by the way, y'all, I was looking at this the other day. Of course, many of y'all know that I am on the hunt for a Springfield trapdoor, which is a rifle that I have an unholy obsession with. I don't know why. It's just a rifle that I'm incredibly interested in. If you look at it, externally, it looks like a percussion cap rifle from the Civil War, but then it has this little trapdoor thing in the back that flips up. I found one of those at a local gun store just a while ago. It was a carbine version of the Springfield trapdoor. I do not think it was original. I think it was a reproduction, and it was rusted over. You know what I'm talking about, Matthew, because I already told you where this specific store was. $1,300. I'd never seen anyone try and rip someone off for what looked like an overused gun. Like, that gun looked like it had been there at the Battle of Bull Run. Like, I would highly doubt that thing was worth $1,300. The rifling was probably gone. I didn't look at the rifling because it was that bad of a gun, but it was rough. It was just rough all around. It looked like this one, actually. It was exactly that one. Like the little carbine short-barreled version.
Interesting.
Yeah, but, you know, it was terrible looking. I wish I could find one that was in that state. I can't even find a picture of it on Google where it looks like that. But this, oh man, it was horrendous. Like, if I could find one, I don't even think people sell them in that kind of condition. That thing was terrible. And also, it's at the gun store, Matthew, where they have, like, the guns on top of guns on top of guns and just guns in the middle of the floor and, you know.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, that one. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And if y'all have ever seen that gun shop from GTA 5 in real life, If y'all know where I'm talking about, that's the place. Like, if it existed, that's it. But anyways, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again for the support.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Craig Platel, who says, Enforcer, you're letting recency bias influence your opinion. In first 33-year service, the UH-60, 180 deaths. Osprey, 51 deaths. Osprey has a lower incident rate than the Harrier, Super Hornet, F-35B, and CH-53E.
Really? That's interesting to hear. I thank you for correcting that, because I've been hearing for a while from friends that have had to ride on them. They feel scared as hell riding on them because they think they're unsafe. So very interesting here that the statistics aren't really backing that up, and that may be why the Army actually went with the tilt rotor design instead of the other conventional helicopter, is because they're looking more so at the stats of performance on prior models that are similar to it instead of just feelings alone. So very interesting. I thank you for sharing that with me, because I'm going to have to correct that based off the stats. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again for the support.
And up next, we have a 10 from Avari Mendebratus once again, who says, imagine a U.S. BBN-class ship, larger than an Iowa-class battleship, nuclear-powered with banks of vertical-launched modular missiles of various types, hydrofoils to enable 50-plus knots, and mini CIWS.
I think I've heard of that thing. What was it called again?
Excuse me. Let's see. I don't know if there's a name to it. They said, imagine a U.S. BBN-class ship, nuclear-powered with banks of modular missiles.
Oh, it's Imagine. I thought that was an actual proposed class. I was like, oh, let's take a look at it. Because the United States actually experimented with hydrofoil ships way back in the day. We never really adopted them because they were kind of a little expensive and also a little limited. But let me see. Oh, yeah, here's some commercial hydrofoil ships that are still used apparently in the present day.
Dang, that thing's getting it.
Yeah, pretty cool. We actually designed one a long time ago, and let me see if there's a picture of it. U.S. Navy. Let me put in Navy hydrofoil. Maybe that'll get it real quick. Navy hydrofoil. So we had these little things here, the Pegasus class hydrofoil ships, and these things were so fast that they could track down Soviet submarines, which were the fastest in the world because the Soviets had to figure out how to deal with American naval supremacy, and the best way to do that was with submarines and incredibly fast attack submarines that could harass carrier fleets worldwide. So the idea is that these little Pegasus class ships would, without that hydrofoil, go flying across the sea at around 68 knots, which, you know, is incredibly fast. It's like a car on the interstate breaking the speed limit by 20 miles an hour. They would hunt down the submarines, start dropping off charges on top of them and munitions, and take these things out, or at least run them away from the fleet, so that way they couldn't harass them and destroy the capital ships. So it was an incredibly cool idea in theory, and Mustard, of course, put out an incredibly cool video on this on YouTube, talking about the theories and the ideas behind these little hydrofoils and what was actually planned for them. These things were supposed to get huge, incredibly huge, like way beyond what this thing is. But sadly, it never happened. Ever, and it just kind of got ditched, usually mostly because of the cost. It was incredibly expensive to make these things, and also they're a little fragile too. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Really cool concept, though, I will have to say. And also, Matthew, that's what the ship looked like with the hydrofoils stowed away. You just had these giant wing-looking struts coming off the side of the ship.
It looks like you know, the Carnival cruise ship, like
oh, it does, doesn't it? Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
Somewhat.
Let's see here. What other pictures do we have that are cool of this thing? Here's one of the first ones that they experimented with. That's just so
That
weird.
thing looks a little funny.
Dude, that thing honestly looks like a guppy. You know, like a big old flying guppy.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else do we have? There's got to be plans for some of the bigger ones. Giant, wait a minute, let me type in giant U.S. Navy hydrofoil. Also, how many super chests do we have left?
Let's see. Oh, we have less than 10.
Really? That's it?
Really?
What?
Yeah.
What? What the hell? Well, let's see here.
Miss 77 says, it looks goofy.
That thing looked goofy. I like it, though. Look at that. That's so cool.
Looks like if you took a sharp turn, you might have some trouble.
Actually, it wouldn't. It actually had fairly easy times dealing with sharp turns. It had an easy time dealing with rough seas. It was a fairly decent little concept all around, and it's still used in the commercial world. It's just that the Navy dropped it because it was incredibly expensive to run these things and operate them.
Huh.
But dude, imagine being
Interesting.
imagine being a Somali pirate in a skiff and being chased down by a flying boat. There's pirates
Man,
over here.
they'd get sliced up by the hydrofoils, probably.
Dude, the Somali pirates off the coast of Africa would be sitting there looking into the distance at this giant wake, just this white mist going, what the hell? And then this thing would be running up on them, just shooting at them as it's flying by. It'd be a drive-by shooting at sea. But anyways, man, imagine if these things were around during the piracy crisis of the early to late 2010s. Like, that would have been insane to see these things fly up on pirates. Like, hell, a merchant ship could have put out a distress call, and these things would have been there because they were so fast that the pirates probably wouldn't have even boarded yet, because it would have been about an hour or two later. But still, with that, we're on to the next one. Interesting concept, but we can't hang out on this forever.
All right. And Jerry S. said, way back when. I don't know why he said that. Oh, it got me thinking of somebody I heard yesterday say back in my heyday for some reason. I heard that as cringe. So, like, don't ever say back in my heyday. That just doesn't sound right.
The kids
but
who peaked in high
anyways,
school.
yeah, back in my heyday, it's like, oh, come on now. But our next super chat goes to Dark Warrior 137, who puts in a 5 and says, and thank you so much for the support. I do hope that addresses the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. What say you, Enforcer?
Well, thank you so much for the support, and I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And also, funny gaff on what I say. Funny gaff. And so with that, we're on to the next one. Thank you once again.
And the next one goes to CA Lags, who puts in a 5 and says the Finns did decorative things to orc remains in the Winter War. Would Ukraine doing that have a psychological impact to today's orcs, the modern orcs?
Well, I thank you for the support. Interesting question. I think doing that to any of them would have the same effect across all time. So, yeah, I think it probably would have the same effect on them. So with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Maybe Morrow, who puts in a 5. And says, thank you guys, and give Saskatchewan a second shot. Look at Melville, which has an amazing railroad origin story. Also, Saskatoon and Quayapol Valley, Slava, Ukraine.
I still can't get over the name Saskatoon. Like, I don't know why. It's a comical name. But it's a neat looking town. I think we've been here before. So check out Saskatoon. Let's drop down here on the main street, 22 Street West. Let's take a look at this Taco Bell.
That's a nice modern Taco Bell.
Yeah, it's not that bad around here too. Look at this. Oh, it's gotten dark though. It's sunny again. Let's go down the street. Cruising on down Main Street. Not that bad. TJ's Pizza. Now that just sounds like some kind of weird pizza shop. I don't know why. TJ's Pizza.
Yo, TJ, can I get some pizza?
Hey, yo, TJ. Cook up that pizza good, yeah, I mean? But let's see here.
And then go next door to D. What the hell is that?
It's the VDV.
This pizza shop's gonna be contacting us saying, "Don't ever say that again."
They're gonna be giving us a cease and desist, and right when you get done eating their pizza, the city pharmacy is your next door. Oh man, that is environmental storytelling at its finest, y'all. The pizza shop being right by the pharmacy, and then this Dairy Queen has the conservatorium still.
Oh, grill and chill.
Wait, hang on. I gotta pull this up to make sure the joke lands. Conservatorium. Let me make sure.
Everybody's saying you're in the hood. Y'all call that the hood?
Man, this looks nice. I don't know what y'all are talking about. For Alabama.
No, this isn't the hood.
No, hell no, this isn't the hood. This is like the nice part of town right here.
Y'all would hate to see what Alabama really looks like if y'all think this is the hood.
Y'all be running. Y'all be running. Y'all be hiding. Y'all certainly not be staying. Yeah, be scared.
Hey, even Morrow said you picked the worst place in town. That's the hood of Saskatoon.
Listen, y'all, if this is the hood of Saskatoon, I'm moving to Saskatoon because this is actually not that bad of a hood. I've seen far worse. Far worse. So let's drop down over here then on Main Street. Literally Main Street. Let's just drop down here and see what this looks like. So I'm not going to say anything because I actually thought it looked really good over there in the hood. Is this posh enough? Is this good enough for you people? Or is this to y'all's liking? Because I thought the hood was nice, but this looks nicer to me. I don't know, because now y'all made me feel like we have very low expectations.
Morrow said check downtown.
Check downtown. We'll hop it
Let's
down.
check in down there.
I wanted to avoid downtown because downtowns are usually nice, but we'll drop there.
I don't know about that.
Well, you know.
Ooh.
Oh. Oh.
Oh, I see a little graffiti. I see some graffiti to the left.
Wait. What does it say?
Oh.
Oh, man. Dude, these guys are rebels. They said all dervs. Oh, we got
Sophisticated rebel.
no, we got rebels, man. They won those free public yachts. But let's see here. Let's move down the street. Yay tie. Okay. I'm not
right.
cheering or anything, but okay. I'm not whooping for joy. What the hell is this thing? Wow, that's one hell of a building. They got a
Probably a
restro.
bank.
They got a restro bar down there in Saskatoon. Or
Everything has
Saskatoon.
sass or seskel.
Let's see. Look at the hotels on the river. They're gonna catch you on a van down by the river, but let's go to the river and check it out. All right, let's wait for it to load. All right, not that bad, not that bad. Oh, this is really nice. Yeah, I see why y'all like this place. It's all Saskatoony. That's Randy. When you go to Canada, instead of watching Cartoon Network, you watch Saskatoony Network.
Yeah.
But nice.
Blue said you about to get shot on Google Maps. Yeah. Now that's a bad neighborhood if you get shot on Google Maps.
Just bullet comes flying through the screen. Oh, look, Roadmaster. Cool.
Oh.
Pretty cool.
A
They
London bus in Saskatoon.
They made a restaurant out of it. Huh, that's weird.
Interesting.
That's weird to me. I wouldn't eat food coming out of a bus. I don't care how good it is. If you're cooking in a bus, I'm questioning it. But anyways, this is nice. And also the Delta Bessboro. Pretty nice hotel. But they blurred out the top for OPSEC reasons. So with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope we took a good look at Saskatoon. And with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Chip Kerwan, who says, how far forward are any Abrams?
We haven't heard a lot about the Abrams. I also love how someone comes in a whole hour into the question segment going, is this a Ukraine channel? Yeah, but we're in the question segment. Anything goes.
That's definitely a bot. Look at that name.
Oh yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
Dude, that's like the guy on the video game that was called the Rat Smacker, and someone asked him in the chat, do you smack rats? And he said yes. It's like, what? It's like, hang on. But anyways, reread the line real quick. Reread the line.
How far forward are any Abram?
We don't know of any Abrams that have made it into Ukraine yet, and we don't even know where they're being trained on the Abrams right now. So unfortunately, we have almost no information about those specific tanks, but still, I thank you for the support. I hope we tried to address that the best we could, and with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support. And also, I think that if Packrat's still here, that may have let Packrat kind of click together why I asked him if he packs rats, because I remember that meme about the rat smacker, and I was like, is this like a play on rat smacker, like Packrat? But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Truster1, who says, I anyway support Ukraine. Thanks for what y'all do.
And thank you for the support. And thank you for backing us up in our support to Ukraine. And that's why we run fundraisers here, because we support Ukraine 100%. And so, thank you all so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Thomas Rogers, who says, please take a question from the live chat, Slava Ukraine, and the LSA. And yes, indeed, Thomas, we will grab one from the live chat. Surprisingly, we haven't had a whole bunch of super chats saying grab one from the live chat. So you're one of the first ones I think I remember.
Yeah, I think he
So
is the first.
yeah, I think so. So the question goes to, in the live chat, let's see, Pakatane, who says, should U.S. tech companies like Apple reshore their manufacturing to North America? Oh,
I
and
don't.
absolutely.
I think they should. However, the problem with that is that the reason they're over in China is because it's so much cheaper, and so they're probably not going to be happy with moving it back to America because manufacturing in America is very expensive, due to everything we have in place. But then again, at the same time, would we rather have that in place to have people working 16-hour shifts? I don't know. Well, I do know. The answer is definitely not. So they're probably going to try and move them somewhere else, and I'm thinking that if it's not to America, when they leave China, it will be to India or it'll probably be to Vietnam, because Vietnam's been growing as a manufacturing base for the United States, especially over the past decade, and the Indians have a lot of potential. They have almost all the potential the Chinese had at the turn of the millennia. So with that, I hope that does address the question fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for the support. But if we could live in a perfect world where they could happily come back to the United States and they would actually stay here, I would say they should. So with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well. I thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
I think bringing manufacturers back to the U.S. is kind of like the same problem in a slight way as nukes. Once one company goes overseas, then they all have to do it to try to compete with that pricing. So if you try to solve the problem, you have to bring them all back kind of at once, which is probably very difficult to do. Not probably, definitely very difficult. But that's the way I think you'd have to solve it. But unfortunately, what would you say about that?
Oh man, that's a really tough problem to deal with, trying to get companies back into the United States. The problem is that they have to pay a decent amount to employees, employee benefits, and also they have to adhere to incredibly strict environmental concerns and regulations and such things like that. And all that stuff drives up the cost. So to offset those costs, they have to make the goods more expensive because they have a goal profit margin. They're not going to sacrifice the profit margin. That's what they're going for. And so if they can't meet that profit margin, they have to boost the price up. But then people aren't going to buy their stuff because there's going to be a competitor out there that has their stuff made in China that's cheaper, and so they buy it. So how in the world do we make those American competitors effective? And the only way we can is to make the cost of being here incredibly cheap. And then how do we do that? Do we start subsidizing the environmental regulations for these companies, and the government, the federal government, pays for that stuff to be done for them, where they don't pay for it at all, so that way they can have a similar profit margin? Or what? And that's getting down a massive political rabbit hole. Like, that question will pretty much lead almost into it. But
give them some tax breaks, and that'll bring them back. Like, give them enough breaks in that arena, and they'll be here.
I don't know. I can't comment about that too much, because it will get political. But with that, I hope we try to answer that a little bit fairly well. But I think they should come back to America. If not, they'll probably go to India, Vietnam, and also someone threw up South America, which actually is a pretty good option as well. Probably Brazil, most likely. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
And the next one goes to Craig Platel, who puts in a 5 and says, look up the T64 BV with mine plow. It's not a variant. It can be attached to any variant.
T64 BV with the mine plow. Oh, there's a model. Not a lot of pictures. But I do thank you for the support and sharing that with us, so that way we know what the hell this thing is. We can see one right here. That thing's a little old. That thing's a little rusty. But thank you for sharing that with us. I knew it wasn't a classic tank. It was some kind of a plow. But I was pulling it up as a T64 BV with the plow because I was like, maybe you'll find it since it's a T64 BV. But thank you for sharing that with us. And also, thank you for letting me find a picture of it. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support and letting me know what I actually had to type in to find that, because we did find it.
All right. And up next, let's see here. This one sets off alarm bells. Allow me to send it to you along with the name of the user as well. Let me send it below it.
Gotcha. What does he mean by the last part?
That's the part I'm concerned about. Also, the username's a little strange as well.
Um, let's see, I'm trying to think, how does that sound when you pronounce it? Let me type it in over here and see what I get. So apparently that is a kind of scope. He said, scope looks like a, can you say, perhaps an Elcan optical technology scope? It's a Canadian optics and electronics manufacturing company owned by the American defense contractor Raytheon, currently based in Midland, Ontario. It could possibly be one, but I'm not really sure because I'm not really a big scope guy, so I don't really know a lot about scopes. I just know a lot about the rifles themselves. And then even sometimes there I can get almost in the a little too in the weeds and lose what I actually know in it. But with that, I hope that does answer that question at least the best I can. It may be one. And with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
And the next one goes to Dupper Bob, who puts in a 2 and says Slava Ukraine. And thank you very much, Dupper. And also, here I'm Slava to you. And the next one goes to Madison Music Teacher, who puts in a 2 as well and says if Russia was a bully to Belarus equals different outcome.
Maybe. I mean, like that may be true. Because the Russians were bullies to everyone around them. Like they were the Baltics. They probably all would have tried to join NATO at around the same time. The Belarusians just kind of hung out because Lukashenko was there and he wanted to be butt buddies with Putin. But still, if he had been a little bit mean to him, he may have actually tried to go to the Western side. Maybe. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And our next one, actually, we're out of our super chat questions, and we are now on to our live chat questions, and we've already gotten the Morse code for the night. So with that being said, we're on to our first live chat question, which goes to Enigma, who says, if Russia attacks Moldova, can Moldova surrender to Ukraine, and together they clean out Transnistria?
That is a neat idea. Sadly, you can't really surrender to a party you're not at war with. And also that requires a lot of negotiations and such things like that. So it would be better to have Ukraine brought in as an ally in the war, because that allows their forces to move through your territory and also fight the enemy wherever they may be. So it would probably be better for the Moldovans to request an alliance with the Ukrainians for defensive reasons. And so with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. And we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from, let's see. We have one from Trister1 once again, who says, is this how NATO would proceed with this force, or will Ukraine improvise something we haven't seen?
I don't, in what's that in reference to?
I'm not really sure, to be honest.
Unfortunately, I don't think I can answer that because I don't know what that's supposed to be in reference to really give a good answer. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Marion Deemert, who says Ukraine gave all of its nuclear weapons to the West and got a written agreement from Russia that they would never attack Ukraine. Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that's somewhat true. The Budapest Memorandum. I really messed that one up, didn't I?
Wow.
The Budapest Memorandum does exist out there. The problem is it's a memorandum, and memorandums are not as binding as other forms of written resolutions and agreements that exist within nations. So while it was there, it's not really enforcing. It's not really an enforcing agreement. And also, another thing about it is that the Ukrainians had, at the time of the dissolution of the Soviet Union, something like 1,200 to 1,300 nukes. They were the third largest nuclear power in the world for several years, and the concern and the problem there was that the Ukrainians didn't really have enough money. They didn't really have a strong government either at the time, and the fear was that these nuclear weapons would begin to disappear through corruption and other means, because the collapse of the Soviet Union was devastating, not just to the Russian Federation that came out of it, but every other former Soviet republic that was a part of the USSR. They all were in absolute terrible states in the first few years afterwards, and far worse states actually than they were during Soviet times, which says a lot about the situation. But the fear was that because of all this, and because of all the poverty and people falling out of the military or just sitting around and not even being paid by the government, that they would start to sell off these nukes to make money. And so we had to find a way to get those nukes done with immediately. And so we went to Ukraine. We said, you're not a nuclear power. You got to give them up. And if you give them up, we'll protect your independence or something like that. So sign this memorandum. And the Ukrainians were kind of happy with that because they got to get rid of the nukes. They knew they were going to become a problem because there's no way for them to keep up all of them. So they agreed, and then we came in along with the Russians. We scooped them up. We dismantled a lot of them. And then also I think some of them went back to Russia. Still, at the end of the day, they had to get rid of them one way or another. And the memorandum just kind of secured that goal in the short term. I still think that if you agree to something, it should be binding. The memorandum was something that all three countries outside of Ukraine agreed to, and so they should have definitely protected the Ukrainians, and the Russians shouldn't have attacked the Ukrainians in the first place. But like many things, treaties, memorandums, and such things like that are fleeting, and sadly, the Russians just decided to rip the entire memorandum up, in their opinion, and just go ahead with an invasion of Ukraine. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, Marion. And thank you once again for throwing in a pretty good live chat question. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Putin will hang in the middle of the Kremlin, who says, "Sorry I'm late. I just came home from work, and a question from the chat, please."
And thank you for the support. It's okay that you're late, Putin will hang in the middle of the Kremlin. We're never worried when people are late, because we know that all of y'all are Lee Spring Army soldiers, and Lee Spring Army service is, as you'll all know, for life. And so, with that, we will make sure to take a question from the chat, and thank you once again for the support.
All right, and the question from the chat goes to Slava Ukraine, who says, "Which
Slava.
tank sent?" Yeah, here I'm Slava. Which tank sent will be most effective on the battlefield, considering logistics, etc.?
I think we already answered that.
That sounds familiar. Yeah, I think they put that in the super chat too. But anyways, next one we have is from Danny D. He says, "How long will the war go on? In your guys' opinion, they look weak, but still holding on almost a year later."
I would say there's no way to crystal ball this into the future too well, so keep that in mind. This is probably going to be off. I would say it's probably going to end by mid to late summer. That was the original timetable that we had last year, but at the same time, it looks like it may drag on. So if anything, it'll probably end by the end of this year, or it may go well into next year, in my opinion. And so with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well, and we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from OG Wilson, who says, "Do you know if Ukraine has gotten Textron unmanned combat vehicles?"
I don't know. Let's pull them up and let's see what they look like. Textron, unmanned, unmanned armored vehicle. Oh yeah, they definitely haven't gotten any of these. We've never seen any of them. We actually pulled this thing up before, because it looks like a big technologically advanced locust. But with that, I have not seen these, so I hope that answers the question fairly well. And we're on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a question from CA Lags, who says, "Shouldn't the supplicant be the one making the trip? Putin should be visiting Xi, bringing tribute."
Yeah, honestly, it kind of should be like that. But every once in a while, people like to always make the little guys feel important. And so with that, I hope that does answer that question fairly well, because that's actually the real answer. Because when you think about it, why the hell is Xi, in charge of a country that has a GDP of something like 16 trillion, going to a country with a GDP of 1.6 or 1.4 trillion dollars? Like, it's not even an economically comparable or significant country compared to China, yet he's visiting it. It doesn't really make much sense.
Because he heard Russia has some honey.
Honey. We're on to the next one.
All right. So our next one goes to, let's see here, Sweaty Chungus. He says, "A question for the enforcer. Aren't there only 40 ships in the Black Sea Fleet?"
Yes, there are only 40 ships in the Black Sea Fleet. Doesn't sound like a big fleet. It really isn't. So with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. And guess what? You know it. We're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Ukraine-Russia war, who says, "How do you guys reckon you will go if this war goes on for another 5 years?"
Me? I don't really know. I mean, I've never really thought it would last that long. If it does,
Could be practicing law by then, so
Yeah.
it probably wouldn't be doing the stream then.
I don't know. I don't know what we would do at that point. I would honestly have to leave that open to the passage of time itself. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And our next one goes to, let's see here, Nick, who says, Enforcer, have you seen that a U.S. ship of the Sixth Fleet has entered the Black Sea?
I haven't. I didn't know that. I thank you for sharing that with me. We'll make sure to keep an eye on that if we can, although that's really hard to do. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to D.L. Hemingway, who says, I wonder how long before the FSB gives Prighozin a multi-story flying lesson.
I don't think it'll be long, actually. I was thinking about that right then. It's probably going to be a couple of months, maybe a couple of weeks. I don't know, because he's getting a little too mouthy out there. He's getting a little too confident in his laurels. They're about to throw him out something. About to throw him out a can of soup, maybe out a window, maybe throw him in a car, take him out to the woods, give him a little good time, you know, a little but with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. I think it's only a matter of time at this point. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And the next one goes to, hold on. There we go. The next one goes to Real Estate Market Research, who says, is Putin sending any good weapons to the front, like tanks, or is he just sending soldiers of prison grade as cannon fodder?
From what we know, Putin is throwing out pretty poor infantry and pretty poor tanks. He's throwing both of them up there, but they're both of poor quality, so it's not really making much of a difference, and it's only adding to the casualty numbers due to how obsolete and how poorly trained these guys are. So with that, I hope that answers your question fairly well. We're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to the Ukester, who says, we can talk about Xi Jinping, about the most important visit. Now, I think they put that one in a super chat earlier, if I'm not mistaken. They apparently put it in a live chat too. So we've already addressed that one, but hopefully that clarifies it a little bit more. And thank you very much. And the next one goes to CME4PC, who says, did you guys show clips/demo of what the GLSDBs can do? It seems like you did back when they were announced in late December or January.
I think we did. And let me pull them up. GLSDB, ground launch, small diameter bomb. They're from Saab. Let's take a look at their video. Oh, let's take a look. This video is not allowed unless you allow preference cookies. We'll allow the cookies just this one time. Let's watch. Wait, are they playing copyright free? No, they're not. We'll have to mute that. Saab and Boeing's solution for the needs of the armed forces of today and tomorrow. We can see right here the silo. We can see that it's opening up. And the Swedes in their Saab company, they're about to go, sounds like someone's breaking in. And they're going to launch, this ground launch small diameter bombs right out of the Connex box. Long range, precision strike. Really getting into this Nixon here. We can see the GLSDBs lifting up into the sky. Maximum range of more than 150 kilometers. We can see the ground launch small diameter bomb launching into the sky. Listen, if the president does it, he's not guilty. That is a fact. When you see it rocketing off into the sky, absolutely brilliant. More brilliant than our troops in Vietnam.
Oh, dang.
Oh, wow, we can see it slamming into the sea. And now we can see them throw up the letters on screen like it's some kind of a gamer tag. What the hell was that?
Saab and Boeing together again.
Saab, they make a good car. I'm just kidding. They make a terrible car. But with that, I hope that does address that again. I hope we watched the video. I hope you enjoyed it. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Pakistan, who says, Matt, if the Chinese economy begins to fail, will they call in international development loans and create a cascade of government failures throughout Asia, the Middle East, and Africa? And that would be about on par with China's strategy, wouldn't it?
That would be. I feel like that would be something they probably do, because if they're going to try and save themselves, they'll take down the whole ship with them if they can. So with that, I hope that does address that comment fairly well. And interestingly enough, I heard something about the Greek economic collapse. That if we look at Athens, we'll see a lot of pools. Let me go check this out real quick and see if this is true. Dang, there's a lot of roads in Athens. Holy moly. So let's see here. I gotta find the affluent neighborhoods with the pools. So let's see here. There's a pool, but that's like a public park kind of thing. Where the hell's the pools? Like, I was told there were thousands of pools in Athens. let's see where the
Oh, you don't know that joke?
what joke?
The joke about the pools in Athens?
What joke about the pools in Athens? Tell me.
That's the joke.
Well, no, there's a lot of them here. Like they were talking about on
Nah,
satellite.
I'm playing.
There's like,
I'm running through the ringer.
well, here's an interesting fact about it that I'm trying to find to share with y'all is that they have thousands of pools in Athens because having a pool is a sign of affluence because water's a little scarce in Greece. Funnily enough, they're surrounded by sea. But the thing is that the Greek government only has 6 registered swimming pools in Athens. Although there's thousands of them on satellite footage, and you can clearly see them, there's only 6 of them registered with the government because no one in Athens registers their swimming pools because there's a tax. So I was like, that's interesting, but I can't find the freaking pools. I can't find them. Where the hell would they be? I feel like they would be farther out of the city, probably newer houses.
Well, they probably don't want the tax. They probably like disguised them or something as like grass.
No, you can see them. Like, I remember someone showing them. It's just I can't find them now. I don't know.
There
where
was some right there, I think.
No, yeah, it was like a public swimming pool, wasn't it? Nope, that's like a tennis court.
Oh, well, you can't swim in concrete, or at least
West
Putin
Philadelphia.
could probably make you swim in concrete.
Let's see. I can't find it, man. I can't find it. Come on, man. I can't find it. All right, I give up. There's pools out there somewhere, though. Anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Pakatang, once again, who says, will an attempt be made to assassinate Xi while in Russia? If Xi was assassinated in Russia and no responsibility could be attributed, what might China do?
If Xi, wait a minute, Xi was assassinated in Russia?
Yes, yeah, that's true. And if the first question, will an attempt be made? Pakatang, we wouldn't be privy to such information.
I wouldn't be privy to such information, and I don't think that would happen because that would obviously be attributed and blamed on the Russians considering it happened in Russia. So I feel like that probably...
Ow. Ah, it's jacked my arm up, but go ahead.
Oh, I thought you said how. I was about to, well, I mean, like, it makes sense. But anyways, yeah, I would say the Russians would probably be blamed. The Chinese would probably pick a new leader immediately out of the party, and that leader would pretty much blame the Russians for killing Xi, and then that would really sour the relations in between the two. So with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well, and we are on to the second to last question of the night.
Johnson said they're gonna have a cookout. as long as the steaks have a little side of honey, then Xi will be all satisfied. But anyways, yes.
Oh,
but-
dear. That's gonna be Putin if Xi died in Russia. They're gonna run up to him and they're gonna be like, Mr. Putin, Xi just dropped dead. He's gonna be going, oh, dear. He's gonna be like, what do we do?
And then the U.S. bounces up as that bouncing tiger thing with the stripes. Oh, what did he say all the time? What was it again?
I don't know. I don't know at all, man. I don't know.
I can't remember either.
I
but
can't remember it.
Anyways, up next we have a question from Canty Luden, who says reports say that Russia is using Scooby-Doo vans to supply artillery shells. If a Scooby-Doo van gets blown up, does that count as a supply vehicle or what?
Yes, it does. Russian Scooby-Doo van. Here we go. Look. Actually, you pull it up. Wait a minute, hang on. Did you see that meme? Wait, let me go back and find it real quick. Like, Zoink Scoob. This doesn't look like a military exercise.
Man.
Oh man, I love it. Ragged. Enemy fire. I'm getting a kick in it. I'm getting a killing out of that one. But here's a Scooby-Doo van. They are carrying artillery shells somewhat. They're also medical evac. But yes, if these things were destroyed with artillery inside of them, it's counted as a supply truck. So yes, the answer to that is it is a supply truck. But man, the memes are gold. The memes are... Wait, what?
I can't repeat it. It's not PG.
Wait, who said it?
Oh my goodness. I can't even, I'm not even going to point it out. I'm not even going to bring attention to it.
Let's see.
Oh.
Let's see.
Oh my God. I don't even know where your mind would go to think about that. Oh my God.
Text me the name.
I don't even want to bring it up. Just move on. Just move
No.
on.
Text me the name. I've got to find this.
I'll tell you afterward. I'm telling you it's for your own good. I'll tell you afterward.
No, you gotta tell me now. You guys send it now. Send it. I'm on my Discord. I'm looking at it. Not on screen though, but I'm looking at it.
Let me go grab. Hold on. Let's see.
Oh man, I'm waiting for this. Hang on, y'all. I'm gonna figure out what this is. I'm gonna get to the bottom of it, everyone. All right, we got that. All right. Is that it?
That's the name,
I see it now. I see it. I think I glossed over that one before, but with that, we're on to the final question of the night. But before we get there, Zoink Scoop, we gotta get to the next one.
All right, so the last one of the night goes to Trister1. Actually, we have a super chat too, so we'll get to this one by Trister and also that super chat. Trister says, do you think the attacks in Mariupol today were the new living bombs?
I think they may be. We're not really sure because there was no real identifying information about what these things were. They were, once again, UFOs, kind of like we saw over Canada, and we have no idea what they really were, but I think that's a fairly good guess. It may be the GL, the ground launch small diameter bombs, for all we know. Maybe. And so with that, I hope that answers your question, Trister1. And with that, we have one more super chat to cover before the stream ends. And so what do we got?
And up next, we have one from Steve. Steve, day 41. He puts in a £2. Thank you for the £2. That at least not 2 kilos. But Steve says, "Love you guys, and if time, take one from the chat."
And thank you so much for the support, Steve. And I thank you for saying, "Love you guys." We love every single one of you on the Lee Spring Army too. Believe me, it's great. It's huge. And also, we will make sure to take one more from the chat because you asked, Steve. And also, you put day 41 in your name. Sadly, that still makes you a soldat, not an old guard. But still, let's get to that last live chat.
And let's see here. Hold on just a second. Let me check something. Checking. Let's see. Did I miss one? Let's see. Marcus Burtonshaw says, Enforcer Matt, did you read my super chat? Enforcer, do you remember reading one from Marcus Burtonshaw?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Marcus, it might have been during the time when I was off the air, so please resend us the question real quick if you could, please. But anyways, in the meantime, we do have one from Dale Alaticus, who says, question, I heard a rumor that the Orcs is planning an attack on Moldova. Any truth in this?
There is some truth in it. Although I feel like it's highly unlikely, it's going to be incredibly difficult because there's going to be no practical way to resupply those forces and keep them running, considering they have to fly through Ukraine to get there. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And also, we're going to be waiting for this missing super chat, Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson. Have you ever watched The Matrix, Matthew?
I haven't watched it. I've seen the little like trailers of it. I feel like if I watched it, I might turn into one of those people that like thinks they're living in the Matrix and uses that in every reference that they have. Like it might not be best for me to watch it.
I took the red pill, says everyone. Like everyone. Oh man.
Got a bot here. Get rid of him. Bye bye.
Bot
be gone. Bot be gone.
Oh no. But you know,
I see one from Marcus Burtonshaw. He says Japan has donated 5.5 billion USD to Ukraine. Didn't see it mentioned tonight. Thoughts?
I don't think that's ever been mentioned. I've never heard of them providing any kind of support at all, really, except for some small support at the beginning of the war to Ukraine. And great to hear, all the way from the Far East in Japan. Let's look at a town that no one ever looks at, like Nagano. You know what's crazy to me, though, is that the urban areas are so built up, like anywhere that's not a mountain, it's just an urban area. That's kind of crazy.
It is kind of crazy. I like Japan though. Don't ever crap on Japan.
No, I'm not crapping on Japan. I'm just saying that this will be hell on earth to live in because where in the world do you go to a rural area?
I mean,
where in the world do you ever get out in nature is what I'm saying. Like you have to climb a mountain to get in nature.
Oh, if you want to go there, you go to Mount Fuji. But no, seriously, like, where do people live in Japan? I've never really thought about that. Like, do they all live in the city, or is there, like, a countryside?
I don't think there's really a countryside, because this is, like, in the middle of nowhere. Like, you know, I guess relative to Tokyo, but this is still, like, a massive urban area.
Yes.
Totoro! Totoro!
Totoro! They make a very fine toilet.
Man, this is crazy. This is, I guess, what's considered a rural area in Japan. Let's try and find a rural area, because now I'm actually... Okay, this is what looks like a semi-rural area. And it's, like, still urban-ish out here. It's, like, suburban, almost. What do the farms look like out here, though? They're incredibly small. I mean, like, these farms are, like, just a couple of acres big. Or the fields, at least. Man, it's beautiful out here, though. It looks really nice. Honestly, it looks like one of those Studio Ghibli movies, you know? It kind of does, doesn't
Yes.
it? You know, like, same coloring and everything. But, man. Somewhat.
You know, there used to be a guy that traveled to Japan. I can't remember his name exactly. I think it ended with Paul. He went out there and, you know, checked out some forest. I don't know where it was, but...
Oh, no.
Wouldn't want to make a trip out there.
No. No, Matthew, don't be the next thing to obtuse, which is abuse. Don't be obtuse.
Yes, I live in abuse.
Oh, man.
What do you mean? I live in abuse.
Let's see here. Wait a minute. I think we may have found a rural area right here. Dang, every single part of Japan that's like arable land has been used. Like, there's nothing out there really that's rural. Like, maybe this? Okay, this is about as rural as we've ever seen, and this looks like a very dense area of rural France. So let's see what this looks like.
After you get done checking this little area out, go check out the spot with the nuclear power plant and see how that's looking.
Fukushima?
Yeah.
We'll check it out. But I mean, like, you know, it looks kind of like farmland, you know, but it just doesn't really feel rural, you know? Like, it's not like America where you can just see stretching farm fields and no houses. There's, like, little towns and stuff everywhere.
Look at these fields. Perfection. Look at that.
Matthew, it's a farm, Matthew. Everything grows like this. Have you never seen a wheat field?
No, I've seen fields, but this is perfection. Like, this is a whole new level.
Oh.
Japan is on it.
Oh, let me guess. You're going to drive your little Subaru around. I don't have anything against the Japanese, but it is just a farm, Matthew. It's not like they're going to sit out there and make sure every single plant is, like, perfectly planted. You know, it's industrial.
That's what
farming.
the Japanese are known for. They're perfectionists.
Well, yeah, they're perfectionists, but they're not going to be insane like that. That's industrial level farming for Japan. They're not going to sit out there and, like, put every seed, like, in the exact same spot in the grid. Like, that would just be crazy. Watching them actually do that, and that was actually that farm. But
yeah.
Anyways, let's go on to Fukushima. Where the hell is Fukushima? I got to find it. Let's look for the area.
It's up at the top, I think, near the...
No, it's not that far from Tokyo, if I remember right. Let me just type it in. Well, actually, let me type it in here.
Someone said, go north. Oh, Tokyo Han. So it must be from Japan. Said, go north to Hokkaido, the northern island.
To Hokkaido? Oh, they're saying...
they're talking about the power plant.
They're talking about the rural areas. They're saying Hokkaido is rural. Also, this scared the hell out of me when I went to the middle of Tokyo when I typed in, like, Fukushima. I was like, oh, I was like, no. I was like, that's scary. But let me type it in again. Fukushima.
Daiichi.
1 second. Fukushima. So, where's the power plant? Where's the power plant? Where the hell
Like
is it?
Trent said, it's the glowing area. Just look for that.
Yeah, just look for the glowing green area. We won't be that far. Wait a minute. Nope, that's not it. Wow.
What, they removed it from the map or something? Like, why can't we find it?
What the hell is this? It's not that far north. Well, maybe it is, but I don't remember.
Yeah, it is. It's up that way.
Let me just type it in here. Fukushima power plant location. So here it is. So let's zoom out on this map and then go to the other.
It has a 2.7 star rating.
So let's see. It is up there.
I think it's a little too warm here.
So it's near Akuma. So we need to find Akuma. So
oh, but we still can't really find it. Where is it?
I think this is it.
I have to like remove like the Google Maps like tab off of it.
I guess. I mean, I'm not seeing it.
That's weird.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay, we found it. It's here. It is here. There it is.
Oh, there it
Look
is.
at how much crap they put around this thing to, like, you know, deal with the nuclear waste. I mean, like, this whole place didn't look like this before that.
Yeah, they're doing some heavy work here. I saw a documentary on it a while back. They're really having to like take off the whole layer of topsoil and all that, like they did near Chernobyl. Like it's a huge operation.
Let's see what you know. What I was thinking is, considering that the land is practically unusable unless you put in a lot of money into doing that, why not just, you know, strip the land bare? You know, of course, permitting that you don't irradiate the crews doing it, and just coat it with solar panels or something like that, since you can't use the land anyways.
Maybe. I think people actually want to return here, though. Although it's probably going to be a while.
Nah, it would be too long. The people who would want to return be dead. They'd just be straight up dead. Also, another thing that I've heard about this is that they're actually leaking radioactive waste into the sea, because they can't take care of all of it, so they just dump it in the Pacific.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's kind of nice, you know. But
Is it true that the Yakuza still run the power plants over here pretty heavily?
I don't think so. And anyways, the Japanese never really had the Yakuza in the government like other countries would, you know, because
I heard they were heavy at the nuclear plants. Like they were like basically like a cartel.
I don't know. I don't really know a lot about it. I would feel like they probably weren't, because nuclear power being controlled by a mob, you know, yeah, I don't know. That doesn't really sound like it would happen, but I don't know. Maybe it did. I don't really know a lot about it. But still, with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well about the Japanese support. Quite a decent amount, actually, and I've never heard of it before. But with that, it is time to end tonight's stream. I thank you all so much once again for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure covering the news of the war in Ukraine and also wandering through everything that we've done in the question segment, which has actually been pretty extensive. But with that, it is time to round out tonight's show. I will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. Good night, take care, good luck, and Slava Ukraini!
Love Ukraine. Hear 'em, Slava.
Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Ще не вмерла України ні слава, ні воля. Ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. Запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького